That's perfect. Officially, I would like to welcome every one of you folks to our Generative AI Specialization program, the course demo. Awesome. Here is a program where you can able to dive deep and understand what's the Gen AI capabilities and how you can able to transform your career into AI, right? I'm going to dip you guys into the world of AI for the next 2 hours. So just make sure you make a one single promise here. Please make sure you stay till end of this particular program. I will tell you what. So the 2 hours of your time and investment could able to transform, it could able to lead your life into an exciting career opportunities in the future. So please make sure you don't miss this particular opportunity. Please make sure you stay till end of this particular program. And if you want to enjoy an awesome demo on top of the leading cloud platforms that we do have, so please make sure you stay till end of this particular program. Obviously there is a visual treat in this particular program, so and you can able to download the free premium ebooks if you stay till only end of this particular program. We'll be sharing a links at end of this session. Okay, so let's get started quickly. So let me just turn on my camera. I don't know whether you folks could able to see me. Yeah, here we go. Hey folks, yes, this is Sarath. So I'm a trainer for this particular program, and I'm one of a founder and CEO of Psitron Technologies. What we do, you can learn more about us. Just go ahead and Google for www.psitrontech.com. So let's talk about anything related to the cloud, AI, MLOps, data science, Gen AI. We're the best peoples outside. So go ahead and check. I mean, so we are into multiple stuff. We are into corporate training. So we do train the corporates. We work with banks like so Royal Bank of Scotland. It can be Minion Labs in Bangalore or a few other organizations in UK. And we are also into the retail training. So obviously, I don't want to get you bored talking about us. You can learn more about us later. And what we are here for, obviously, let's get started with a visual treat. Let's get started with understanding what is the Gen AI and what it could able to offer for you. So let's get started. I'm going to turn off my camera. So let's say I have trained more than 5,000 plus working professionals like you who want to make their career into AI, right? So obviously AI is not the next big thing. It's a thing right now, right? And again, AI is going to be everywhere, and AI is trying to reach every corner of this world. There's no doubt about it, right? So saying that, let's get started. Okay, here we go. Okay, the highlights of this particular demo session. Okay, so these are the three important points that we will be revolving around for this next 2 hours. Okay, so what exactly we will be doing here? So we'll be learning what is exactly the generative AI is all about and how you can able to master this generative AI. I'm talking about you can able to master and how you can able to lead the Gen AI world. So then comes the career opportunities. How does the career opportunities looks like in terms of Gen AI after you upskilling, right? So let's get started. Here we go. So without wasting a much of a time, okay, so I just want to get started with this beautiful picture. Okay, so here we go. So what are the session that we conduct in terms of AI? It's a ritual that we get started with this particular picture. Okay. Okay. So here is a task for you. Yes, it's going to be more interactive. This is what exactly I want you folks to do. Go ahead and observe this particular picture. Take 10 seconds, observe this particular picture. Use your chat window. Try to describe what is this picture is about. That's all what you need to do. So go ahead and use your chat window and try to describe what is this picture could be, what you could able to recognize from this picture. Let's see what answers you can able to give me. Go ahead, do that. So what do you think this picture is about, right? Okay, so here we have Arsif Shahik is saying a relaxing mode. What an awesome description, isn't it? Obviously, I would like to go ahead and relax in this such kind of a park. Maybe I would like to work here for the entire day. Why not, right? Awesome. That's an awesome description. And here we go. The commands are pouring in. Chandrasekhar says it's a dog show. That's awesome. Yes. Pranjali says it's a dog show. Perfect. Yes. And Vishnu, says it's a lot of people's hanging out with the dogs. What an awesome description, right? So obviously, we know this is a beautiful picture of the park, right? Obviously, we can see this could be the place where we want to spend an entire day, obviously. So, and we can see a lot of trees outside, and we can see a lot of dogs. Obviously, there's no doubt about it. And not just a dog, we can see a different breeds of a dog, isn't it? I can see a dog which is carrying a ball in his mouth. A more detailed description I will give you. Okay, so, and you can see different breeds of dogs, and I can see a path where I can walk. I can see a men. Yep. So wearing a cool sunglasses. What on? Yeah, good. So then we can see a men and women. Yes, we can describe. So we can able to describe it, right? We do understand there's a picture of a park. Yeah, we know there's a picture of a park. What is that for you? How is that is related to what we're talking about generative AI? Okay, my question is different. My question is not what is this picture is about. Let's try to reiterate ourselves. So, and let's say this is what exactly I want you to ask. This is my original question. So, how do you know this is a picture of a park? So, who taught you this is how the park looks like? Who taught you this is a dog? How do you know this is a dog? And how do you know this is a bunch of trees? And how do you know this is a path where you can walk? It's a bench where you can sit. This is a men. How do you know it, first of all? So yeah, that's a question. Okay, so now obviously here we have Naidu says in the chat window, folks, trained from a childhood. Good answer. That's an awesome answer. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's reiterate this. Okay, so what if I go ahead and I will be going ahead and I will be displaying the same exact picture to this newborn baby. Okay, so do you think this baby could able to recognize whatever you could able to recognize right now? Could baby could able to recognize? Okay, there's a picture of a park. That's a dog which is carrying a ball in his mouth. That there are trees. Blah blah blah. No, right? Probably a newborn baby less than 1 year old could able to barely recognize his mother and father. But apart from that, a baby doesn't know anything else, right? But what if, yes, if I go ahead and display the same picture to this maybe a grown up kid, maybe he's going for a play school, or maybe a primary school or something like that. So yes, a kid could able to describe this picture. Maybe you can say, okay, there's a picture of a park where I can go ahead and play with my friends with my ball, with a cricket ball and bat, and I can bring my dog. So that's what exactly you can say, right? But what if I go ahead and display the same exact picture, maybe a grown-up adult, someone who is like you, right? So that's what exactly you're doing. So let's say he can able to give a more in detail description. Okay, you can see this is a picture of a park. Looks like it's a morning hours where people are spending a time and people are enjoying with their pets and with their friends or family, right? He can give a more a detailed description, right? Okay, still, I didn't get the point, you might say. Sharad, what is this about? So we are talking about generative AI. So why we are discussing about this? Okay, so we are discussing about ourselves, right? So let's say what we today talk about AI, artificial intelligence, right? So we're the best examples. So we are the best examples of what we talk about AI today, right? So we are the biological machines at the end of the day. Consider that a newborn baby, a born with an empty brain. Practically, it's not an empty brain. You might have your own genes in it, but yeah, let's talk about doesn't have any information of a real world. But yeah, what happens? So we are the best examples of AI. So AI learns the data. Similar to that, let's say we learn the data in many different ways. We start learning from our kids, from your parents, recognizing people's, making friends, going to the school, learning physics, biology, maths, science, social science, whatever it is, right? So eventually grow up and you learn things and learn things, you eventually get better in that, right? So a kid is much better than a grown-up adult, and a grown-up adult is much better than, maybe let's say we are talking about a person who is more than 50 years old. Like, I mean, let's say if you put growth cycle of a human being, let's say the knowledge that you learn, it's exponentially grows up, right? So finally we expire, but that's not that's a different topic for the different program. But like obviously what we're talking about, you eventually you keep on learning, you get better in that, and you can able to make a decision for your own future. You can able to predict what's going to happen next. And let me tell you, the one good decision or a prediction that you made today, let me tell you what, attending this session. Yes, you made a decision to attend this particular session, believing that Sharath, which is me, a trainer who is going to deliver a valuable content for you, which can able to help you to lead the AI race, right? To be a part of an AI industry. Obviously, that's a decision. Yep, saying that, so as we discussed, we are the best examples of AI, right? So what today human beings are trying to do, we are trying to replicate ourselves, isn't it? Yes, that's what exactly we are trying to do. So what are the data that we could able to learn, the way we could able to make a decision, the way we could able to make predictions. We want to teach the same exact data to this dumb machines. Yes, at the end of this, these machines could able to understand zeros or ones, right? So we started teaching the same exact data to these machines, right? So consider that as a human beings, right? So we consume a data in many different ways. You can go ahead and list it if you know what are the different ways we consume a data. Okay, let me just tell you. Yes, we consume a data through human eyes, right? So we can able to visually see the things there. You are actually consuming a data right now in front of your eyes. You're observing my slides, right? And still you're consuming a data in another way. You're hearing my audio, you're hearing my words, right? So you could able to still consume a data through a sense. I mean, touching things. You can able to consume a data through smelling, right? Isn't it? We can smell the biryani and we know what kind of a biryani it is. It's that classic Hyderabad biryani, whether it's a Delhi biryani, whatever it is, right? So, but the example is, as a human beings, we consume a data in many different types. Our eyes, through visuals, through audio, through a nose, by a smelling things. Similarly, a machine could able to consume a data in many different ways, right? So consider that maybe I have a text document. I want to teach this text document to this machine. Or I could have a pictures. It can be JPG. It can be a PNG picture. So, I mean, it can be a picture that I'm talking about, right? So, or it can be any JSON document, right? It's a structured, maybe a document that we're talking about. So, similarly, a machine can also consume a data in many different ways, right? So we are trying to teach the same data, whatever we learned, right? So let's get a simple example here, okay? So consider that I will take a simple example here. So maybe I will go ahead and grab some CSV file. Okay, simple example. Let's say this CSV file has some data. Let's talk about, okay, I put some sensors in your home. Maybe I collected the amount of electricity that you consume for last 3 years. So that means I have around 30,000 data points. I mean, in this CSV file, I have 30,000 rows in it. So my goal is pretty much simple. I want to take this bunch of data. I want to teach this data to a machine. So what we call it as machine learning at the end of the day, right? So what happens? This machine learns the data. Just imagine it's a 3 years of your electricity consumption of your home. So obviously it machines tries to understand the pattern from the data, which is nothing but it tries to understand how does your electricity consumption would look like in summer, how does it looks like in winter, or it can be in a monsoon, right? It tries to understand and it creates something called a machine learning model, which will be a part of final end product, we can say. And once we have this machine learning model, we can ask this model to make some decisions or predictions, right? So maybe I can ask this machine learning model. I will throw a simple example. So I want to understand what will be my electricity bills going to looks like for the next 6 months. So obviously, it's a model that can able to help you to understand what your bills, a future bills is going to look like, right? It's going to say, okay, your first month bill is going to look like this, second month and 6 months, right? It can do a simple forecast, right? Okay, let's throw this example. Let's say I will take a bunch of documents, maybe I will take a bunch of documents. It can be your books, articles, blogs, whatever it is, whatever the data that we have on the internet, right? So I go ahead and teach all this data to a machine, right? Which we're talking about a large data that's available on internet. So at the end of the day, then it produces something called large language models. For a reason, yes, that's why we call it as large language models, because this large language models are trained on top of a huge amount of data. Just imagine OpenAI, you know that ChatGPT, they might have scrapped the complete internet. They might have just scrapped the entire Wikipedia. They might have scrapped entire blogs, GitHub, books that's available in the world. They taught the entire data to that machine. Then it produces something called large language models. And now you have this large language model. You know what you can do with that. You can ask this model to generate some text. Maybe you can input a text. You can ask it to write a beautiful bedtime story for your kid. Maybe you can ask to write maybe a convincing a love letter for your girlfriend. Who knows, right? Or you can ask this large language model to write a code, right? So, let's say we are talking about this is about a text, but now let's say I want to take a bunch of pictures of a cat and I want to take a bunch of pictures of a dogs. I'm taking a picture. Okay, I want to teach the difference between a cat and a dog, right? So what we're calling it as computer vision, anything that we can able to do with images and videos. So what happens, a machine tries to understand the difference between a cat and a dog. Okay, so then again it produces a machine learning model. Okay, see what happens next. I will be putting a camera in front of my a model, and then I will be putting a cat in front of my camera. Okay, this is a cat. Yes, that's a cat. Yeah, for our understanding for now. So consider that this is a cat. So now once the cat comes in front of a camera, okay, the model says, okay, there's a cat which is standing in front of a camera, right? So it could able to recognize a cat. It could able to differentiate between a dog and a cat. So what we call it as computer vision, right? So this is an example of what we're talking about AI. And today we are here to understand something called generative AI. So what is this? Gen AI, because still the question is unanswered. Let's try to explore that further. So let's step into the next step here. Okay. Now let's try to understand the evolution and architecture of this generative AI. So where we are standing today is a world of generative AI. So let's try to understand that. Let me have some water before that. Perfect. So let's get started. So obviously, let's say we are talking about evolution, which is starting from 1956. AI, it can be our machine learning, what we're talking about, our deep learning that we're talking about, or today what we're talking about, generative AI. So we are talking about an origin. So where it started and where we are today, right? So let's try to understand. So let's try to understand from many years of research in AI. So what does this scientist has does? The scientist has developed a new type of a model. They call it as transformers. Yes, I'm not talking about a transformer movie, which is an Hollywood movie. No, I'm not talking about such kind of a transformers. So we're talking about a transformer. It's a such kind of a deep learning model, right? So that solves a bigger problem with older AI models like RNNs. See what happens. This older models actually struggled to process a long piece of text. So, but transformers, what they can do, they can able to handle a much larger input. Comparing with the legacy models, they really felt difficult with processing a huge amount of a text. So that's where the origin of transformers comes into the picture. So just imagine Google is the basically the found. I mean, they are the origin of company which produces this transformers. Actually, a transformers is a kind of a machine learning models which can able to process a large amount of a text. Okay, let's just simply put it in our brain for a reason. So the key reason the transformers works well is because of something we call it as attention mechanism. So basically this allows the models to focus on the most important words in a sentence. So no matter where they appear actually in a sentence, right? So instead of reading a text one word at a time in order, let's say like older models, like which is older models reads one word at a time. But what transformers could able to do it, right? Transformers can look at everything at a time and decide which part matters the most. So old models can read one word at a time. Just imagine you might have a big PDF with PDF of maybe 10 pages. How many words you might have, right? Old models could able to read one word at a time. Just imagine transformers could able to grab the entire document. It could able to understand what's there in that document, right? So most modern models basically that we are talking about, which can able to generate a text, which we call it as large language models, where we call it as LLMs, so are actually built on top of this transformers are something which can able to understand the complete words at a time. So so these models are basically trained, as I mentioned, on a massive amount of a data. See, I'm talking about not a one document or a two document. Just imagine organizations like OpenAI, or let's say we are talking about Meta, which has their own large language models, or let's say we are talking about AWS or maybe Anthropic, right? They have their own large language models today. These organizations, they have such kind of an investment and they have such kind of an infrastructure. Just imagine if you want to scrap the complete data in the internet, how much money you need, how much infrastructure you need. They have that. Obviously, they are the peoples who built what we call it as large language models. They have scrapped the complete internet. It can be books, articles, websites that you have. So as a result, they learn how large language models works and can generate a response that sounds natural and even creative, right? So in a simple terms, LLMs could able to read a lot of text and learns a pattern from that and then uses that knowledge to understand and responds like a human like a way, right? You know what you can do today with large language models. One example that you might have learned, chat gpt, right? So here we are not here to understand how to use chat gpt. This is not a program where you can learn how to use chat gpt. So using a chat gpt is all about you being a consumer of an AI. No, I don't want you folks to be a consumer of an AI. Rather than that, I want you to be a creators of that AI. So how do you create such kind of an applications by yourself, and it can solve such kind of a problems to a huge organizations, right? That's where we are here to understand. So let's get started. Let us try to understand what is this generative AI is all about, right? But I'm talking about something called LLMs, right? I'm talking about something called LLMs. Okay, now I'm talking about something called generative AI. There's a confusion between what is this LLMs and what is this generative AI. Is that a different thing? No, definitely not. Let's try to understand that. So when I'm talking about generative AI, let's try to understand the meaning behind the word generative. That means it can generate something. What do you mean by that? So generative AI basically refers to the AI systems which can create a new content, a content which never exists, right? So rather than, let's say, for example, just analyzing existing data, this includes generating a new text. It can be a generative AI is an again example of generating a new images, generating a new audio, or even a video, for an example. So these models learn obviously from the vast amount of data. So consider that we can bring everything today that we're talking about large language models, which can able to generate a text for you. We're talking about image generation models like DALI 3, and a lot of other AI tools that's available in the market, right? Which can generate a picture. If you input a text, it can generate a image for an example. Let's go to the black screen. Okay. So let me just bring everything in an umbrella of generative AI. So consider that we are talking about text to text. That means if you input a text, it will generate a text. Example is what ChatGPT could able to do. So obviously ChatGPT today can do more than one thing. It can also generate a pictures. That is something called multi-models. We'll discuss that. But now let us talk about large language models. If you input a text, it can generate a text. You can go ahead and ask a ChatGPT to go ahead and write a bedtime story. It can write a story, a text, right? Or let's say there are models which you can input a text and you can generate an image. And there is a models which you can able to input a text which can generate a video, for an example, right? So you can able to input a text and it can able to generate maybe an audio for you, right? So we can bring everything into the radar of generative AI. So what is generative AI? As the name represents, this kind of AI tools could generate a new content, a content which never exists, right? It adds a creativity, right? So if you ask large language models to generate a story, to create a bedtime story, it creates a story. It has a capability to create a story which never exists in this world because it has a creative parameters in it. It can generate that creative story, or it can generate a picture that never exists. You can ask to generate a picture of a man. Obviously, it will generate a realistic picture of a man which never exists in this world. Yes. So that's what exactly the generative AI is all about. And wherein we discussed about large language models, they are specialized in processing and generating a text. So these models are trained on, again, huge amount of text data, right? But generative AI models are vast. I mean, they are trained on text data, image data. It can be any other video data that is available in the internet, etc. Right. So if I want to give some examples, let's say you might have heard about something called Mid Journey for an example of image generation tool, or let's say we are talking about DALI 3. We will talk about various different examples. But there is something called foundation models. We understand what is generative AI is, large language models are. What is this foundation models anyway? So foundation models, they are the foundation, obviously. So foundation models, we can say they are general purpose AI models that serves as a base for various applications. So I mean, they can be fine tuned for a special task. Let's say you want to create your own chatbot for your organization. Maybe you want to create a medical diagnostic application. You want to create a coding assistant AI tool, right? So here you can use an existing foundation models. Let's say it can be GPT 3.5, which is actually used to create what we call it as chat gpt today. So consider that chat gpt is a final end product, right? It's not a model. Chat gpt is an application. It's a chat based application. And you know that chat gpt can do more than one thing, right? It can generate a text, it can generate a code, it can solve your problems, it can do some math. But let's say organization like OpenAI, they have used GPT 3.5. They fine tuned that to build a chat GPT application. We'll understand much in detail once we getting inside for the slides. And there is something called overlap here. So consider that we are talking about large language models. We are talking about Gen AI, right? So large language models are what we are talking about today. They are kind of a foundation models, but not all the foundation models are large language models. So you can have a foundation model which can able to generate a picture. You can have a foundation model which you can generate an audio or video. See, foundation models are bases. Let's say you take that foundation model, you optimize it accordingly for an application that you want to develop. So consider that you have a stone and you give the stone for the sculpture and he can able to design, I mean, he can convert a stone into a beautiful statue. Maybe you want a statue of a dog. That's your use case. Maybe there is a stone and you want a sculpture to design it. Maybe you would like you are looking for maybe a sculpture of a cat. Maybe that's your use case, right? So foundation models are like a stones and you optimize it accordingly so you can convert that for your own business use cases. Okay, let's try to understand more in detail. So now let us try to understand how does this LLMs really works, right? Let's get started. So when we're talking about large language models, it can be large language models like OpenAI, GPT, or Anthropic Claude, and anything that we're talking about. So they are actually work through a few important steps. I mean, the first step what happens, they break down the text into smaller pieces, what we call it as tokens, because at the end of the day, large language models works on a text. They take, I mean, we input a text, that text will be break down into smaller pieces. We call it as tokens. Just remember this tokens, which can be some kind of a numbers, because at the end of the day, this machines can able to understand numbers, right? It cannot understand pictures. It cannot understand your text. It can just understands numbers. It can be 0 or 1 for an example, right? So then what happens, we convert these numbers into what we call it as tokens, that models can have numbers, which can models can able to understand. So then what happens, this model predicts next token based on the input it has received. So adding each new token to the sequence at one time. So basically what we can able to do to make this predictions, the model uses a probability in order to choose the model's likely a next token. It also adds a bit of randomness. We call it as a creativity, basically, to make the response more creative and less repetitive, for an example. Simple, in a words, we input a text. This text will be break down into smaller chunks, what we call it as, let's say, smaller pieces. We call it as tokens. So here is a best example of tokens. So consider that we have a text input, which we call it as hello AI world. This hello AI world has been converted into a numbers, because at the end of the day, so you can see 9906 in AI world. I mean, for a machine, 9906 is nothing but hello. And let's say if you take 15592 for a AI, it is AI, basically the word. So then comes the word world is being represented as 1917. So that's the AI understands, if the word says world, it understands the numbers 1917. That's the AI says it's a word world, actually, right? So that's how the machine understands it at the end of the day. So when it comes to these large language models, there are two things that we need to understand. There is one thing called encoder and decoder. So, I mean, see what happens, this encoder and decoder are a core components that is used by this transformer architecture. We discussed about transformers to process and generate a text. Here is a simple explanation of each and everything. Let's start with what we call it as an encoder here. So basically an encoder processes the input text and converts that into meaningful representation. So that means what we're talking about, the numbers that captures the context and relationship between the words. So it mainly used for a tasks like, when we're talking about encoder, let's say it can be a text classification use cases, a sentiment analysis, or understanding the input text. So an encoder basically consists of multiple layers, we can say, that uses self attention mechanism to focus on important part of an input text and to create a context aware representation, actually, right? So wherein a decoder, for an example, right? So a decoder basically has a task that represents generated by the encoder. So what I'm trying to say, and generates an output text, a one token at a time. So basically it uses both the context from the encoder and the previously generated token to predict the next token. So the decoder is primarily used in a use cases like text generation, for an example. Let's say you want to generate a text. That's what exactly a chat GPT can able to do. Or let's say you want to do some language translation. You want to translate a Hindi to English or Tamil to English, or maybe you want to do complete the sentence, for an example, right? So that's where the encoder and decoder comes into the picture, basically. So encoder and decoder, it's all the game that plays with a number. So where your text is converted into numbers, and it machine analyzes it, and it tries to understand what's the next word that I want to give as an input for a customer. For an example, let's say you're asking, write a story about maybe a Cinderella, right? Let's say it's a very, I mean, a children's story that you might have heard about. Let's say you're asking AI to write a story about a Cinderella. Obviously, AI start generating each and every word. So the encoder and decoders that we're talking about plays a very important word, because how does AI decides what's the next word that I want to write in that paragraph, or the next word that I want to write in that particular line. So that's where encoders and decoders comes into the picture. So saying that, so now let us talk about different types of LLMs. Or let's say at the end of the day, let's talk about different types of generative AI tools that's outside in the market, because the use cases are everywhere. Because consider that when we're talking about world of generative AI, every organization is trying to integrate generative AI in their organization in multiple different ways. So consider that it can be a text generation models. Let's say we are talking about a GPT 3.5, Anthropic models, or it can be meta-based llama models, for an example, can be a best examples. Then comes image generation models. Let's say if you input your text, it can generate a picture basically, right? So it can be DALI 3, Mid Journey, or let's say Anthropic Claude, for an example, which we call it as multi-model, could also generate a picture, right? So then comes audio and speech recognition models. So consider that there is a model called Whisper, so which can, let's say, you can able to input your audio, which can then convert that into, let's say, a text, for an example. Or there are AI tools that's outside in the market which can able to generate a speech output. Okay, so we do understand a text generation models which generates a text, image generation model which generates an image, audio and speech recognition models would able to recognize a speech and it can generate a speech. But here is a twist. There is something called multi-modularity, which is nothing but today most of the organizations has what we call it as multi-modularity, which is nothing but a one model can do both the jobs together. Yes, a best model would be Anthropic Claude, right? So Anthropic is an organization, so where they have their own model called Claude, which can able to do a two job. It can generate a text as well as it can also generate a picture. A one model can do a two things, generating a text and images, which we call it as multi-modularity. Then comes we are talking about customizations, right? So obviously models can be tailored with your own specific data to enhance your own needs. For an example, let's say your company has your own use cases, how you can able to adapt this large language models or Gen AI models to work for your own organization. That's what exactly we're talking about, customization. Yeah, isn't it awesome? So now let us talk about foundation models versus large language models. Let's say we are talking about foundation models, or what we today calling it as LLMs. Let's discuss that. See, when I'm talking about these models, right, it can be foundation models that we're talking about. They are actually trained using what we call it as unsupervised or self-supervised learning techniques. So, which means they learn from unlabeled multi-model data without requiring any human annotations or labeling during the training process. So they are characterized by their large size and they are built on very deep neural networks, obviously, and trained on billions of parameters, because that's why they call it as large language models. So designed as a foundation models, they serve as a starting point for developing other models. So which can be a further customized and fine tuned to meet a specific requirements. So when I'm talking about foundation models, let's just talk in a very simple terms. Okay, see, foundation models are trained on the huge amount of generic data that's available on the internet, right? So consider that if you go to internet, there are a lot of books, books related to stories, a book related to articles, it can be, or let's say we are talking about books related to technology, it can be coding, it can be related to storytelling, security, anything. Let's say we are talking about a generic data that's publicly available in the internet, for an example. So this organizations has took that particular data, they have trained a model, and what they call it as a foundation models. This foundation models, believe me, they are always works outside the box. I mean, this foundation models, they can do more than one job. So if you want to use this foundation models to generate a story, let's say you want to ask it to write a story about a bedtime story, or maybe you want to ask this foundation models to write the code. Yes, it can do. You can ask this foundation model to do some basic mathematics. Yes, it can do. Yes, this foundation models works outside the box. But wherein the large language models that comes into the picture, this large language models are built on top of this foundation models. See, consider that you are into an organization. Let's say, for an example, you are into, let's say, health sector. Maybe let's say we're talking about health insurance sector, right? So consider that you want to build a large language model which is specific to answering the questions related to the policies, health insurances, related to your customers. But yes, this foundation models can do the job, but still, but you want to fine tune your own large language model. So consider that you have a foundation model. On top, you'll be feeding your own organization data. Let's say we're talking about health insurance data, and you'll be fine tuning that. A fine tuning is nothing but you're taking an existing trained model, you're teaching an additional data to it, and you'll be getting your own version of a model. Let's talk about what we're calling it as, let's say we are talking about text generation model. You'll be producing your own LLM. That means this LLM is optimized with your own health insurance data. But this foundation model works outside the box. Maybe it has a limited amount of data that's publicly available on internet, because we are talking about health insurance records, right? Let's talk about any health insurance companies like Policy Bazaar, right? It can be anything. Just imagine Policy Bazaar health insurance data is not publicly available. You might take different kind of a health insurances, right? You might have a health insurance which covers 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs, 10 lakhs. But what are the different kind of diseases health insurance policy that you've taken as will cover, what will not covered? So those records mostly sometimes will not be available on top of public internet. But yes, this foundation model is aware about health insurance records limitedly, whatever that is available on internet. That's where maybe this kind of an organizations, they took their own data, they fine tune an existing large language model, existing foundation model with their own data, and they produce their own version of large language model which is fully optimized to answer your customer queries related to health insurances, for an example, right? So that's where it starts. You take your foundation models, you fine tune it accordingly, and then you can start working it for your own need. Let's throw a simple example here. So as I discussed, to better understand this concept, let's consider that you have a chat GPT 3.5 model, right? So the initial chat GPT is built using GPT 3.5, which is a foundation model. So what OpenAI as an organization, they might have enhanced this GPT 3.5 model by fine tuning it for a chat focused. Consider that a chat GPT is a platform where you can able to chat with an AI, right? It's a chat interface. You need to convert an existing foundation model for a chat focused data. So, and then enabling this model to excel the conversation task like working like a chat bot, right? So consider that. We'll take another example here, as I mentioned. See, consider that maybe there is a health sector, as I mentioned. Maybe they have a data sources like they might be having a pharmaceutical data, and they might be having some data from their wearable sensors. So from then comes publications from the medical forums, and they might have an X-rays from the patients. They might have some video ultrasonic data. It can be ECG data or any kind of an medical data set. But consider that a foundation model can work outside the box because it has learned from publicly available generic data, but it doesn't have an access to your in-house business data, right? That's where you take an existing data of your own organization, you take an existing foundation model. Okay, let's take llama model that's available in the internet. It can be chat gpt, it can be anthropic claude. They're all foundation models. You take and you teach an additional data to this foundation models. That means now these foundation models are aware about your own organization data. That means now this foundation models as more intelligence, it can solve any kind of a problem. So, and again, consider that your focus is adapting this foundation models to act as a maybe health sector chatbot. Maybe it want to answer a questions related to health sector. Maybe it can be related to maybe you have a doctor who want to maybe create a documents related to diagnostics or treatments, and maybe you want to create some kind of a chat interface where your customers can able to mention their symptoms. Maybe consider that you have a large language model where your customer goes and, okay, I have this symptom. Okay, I have a loss in I have a lot of I'm losing my weight. Maybe I have a lot of sweating. Maybe, like, let's say we go ahead and mention the symptoms with large language model. Maybe large language model says, okay, this symptoms corresponds to what, whether it's a heart attack, whether it's a diarrhea, whatever it is, right? So it suggests, okay, you need to go ahead and check with this specific doctor. So I mean, you're adapting a foundation model to work focused to the medical sector, for an example, right? Okay, saying this, we got it. What is a foundation model? And we take this foundation model, we adapt it with our own data to work better for our own organization needs. So saying that, now it's time. So now you have enough scenarios to consider where we can able to get started. Now let us get into the second point that we need to discuss. So what it takes to master this generative AI. Let's get started with an interesting discussion now. Okay, let's get into the very important part here. There are 4 approaches, right? The 4 approaches for an LLM to the production. So how you get any large language models into the production. So these are the strategies what every organizations should follow, and they are following it. So let's talk about this. What is this 4 approaches for an LLM to the production? See, what happens, enterprises are exploring this 4 different steps approaches. So what we're talking about to kickstart their LLM journey, right? So ranging from, let's say, easy and inexpensive to more complex or cost to deploy this large language models in the production. So consider that here is a scenario. So this is how the workflow would look like. So consider that here the first step would be prompt engineering. So then comes using what we call it as rack systems. We'll talk about it. Then comes fine tuning or training your own, let's say, custom foundation model. So yes, here we have an approach which is easy and cheap, and we do have a difficult and expensive, expensive task as well. So which one that your organization is looking forward, which specific a concept would definitely works for your organization, it does matters basically. So which approach you need to choose, right? How do you choose which approach does works for you? That's what exactly we need to make a decision here, right? So let's get started here with a prompt engineering for an example, right? So obviously there is something called prompt engineering, and some people they say that, okay, I'm using a chat GPT, I know how to do a prompting because I input the text to the chat GPT. So that's not exactly the prompting is. So prompting is all about giving a desired input to your large language model to get the expected output from it. So there is a techniques, there is a engineering behind creating this particular prompt basically. So now let us get started with the prompt engineering itself. Okay. So let's say when I'm talking about a prompt engineering, right? So many enterprises actually begin their journey. They have to begin their journey. They should not. Obviously, it is not a best approach. Okay, let me just go ahead and train my own foundation model from a scratch, or let me just go ahead and fine tune because I have my lot of data sitting in my organization, let me just go ahead and fine tune the model. No, it's not definitely the best approach. So they have to definitely experiment from the first. Let's get started with the prompt engineering now. So as I mentioned, a lot of organizations, they get started with their LLM journey using a cost efficient and time efficient approach by directly calling a third party AI providers, like through APIs. Like say I can go ahead and simply call OpenAI model, or it can be Anthropic Claude model through a prompt. Yes. So consider that we are talking about tools like Amazon Bedrock or OpenAI, or it can be Azure AI Foundry, all these cloud platforms. There are a lot of models already deployed behalf of you. All you can use, you can simply use APIs to simply call these models. That means you'll be using an APIs to call these models, and you'll be inputting a prompt and it will generate a desired output. You're not deploying the model, you're not fine tuning the model, you're using an existing model that's available in a internet or maybe in a cloud platforms. You're just checking that whether this existing models does works for your use cases or not. So I mean, most of the large language models that you see outside in a cloud platforms, OpenAI models, or it can be Anthropic models or Llama models, they work outside the box. But in most of the organizations, they don't need to fine tune their models, because if they have a desired prompt, and this could able to fetch the right output what they are looking forward, right? So obviously when I'm talking about however, what happens, this generalized large language models may not always provide the desired response unless the prompt is framed in a specific way, or guided with some additional directions as well, right? So this process, what we call it as a prompt engineering, that requires obviously creative writing skills and multiple iterations to ensure the best possible response that you get. It's all about trial and errors, right? So yes, so here you can see that this could be the prompt that we would be writing to call the models through an APIs. So here we are saying you are writing an email on behalf of someone. Take the input below and write a longer, a polished version of a text. Keep the tone professional and friendly. So you can able to see this is how the beautiful prompt would look like. So this is basically a context that we are setting. So then comes here is the input. Great to meet. Can we talk? This is the input that I'm giving. So with this input, I want my large language model to create maybe a simple email with a professional tone, right? So this is about a simple prompting. So now let us talk about implementing a RAG systems. So what we call it as RAG, which is nothing but retrieval augmented generations. At what point you need to definitely think about using RAG systems? So consider that. Okay, let's go with a simple example. Here is a simple prompt that we have inputted for a chat GPT. So here the question is how the stock market is doing right now. I'm talking about, let's say if you go ahead and ask the question to a chat GPT, how is the stock market is doing right now? You can see this is what the output that we got from the large language model. It says, apologize, but as I'm AI language model, I don't have an access to a real time data, it says. So obviously this large language model has a limited memory. Just remember that. Maybe let's say we are talking about, let's talk about initial version of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT came to the market in the year of 2022, for an example. That means they might have trained their own model maybe before 2022. That means they have a history. They might have scrapped the complete data that is available till 2022. That means the model they have built as a knowledge till 2022 only. That means it doesn't have any much data that's available in today's world, for an example, right? So what happens in that perspective? So this is where we can able to use rack systems. But don't talk about what we have today in a chat gpt. Chat gpt has a search interface. We are not talking about that. Okay, today if you go ahead and ask the question, okay, if you go ahead and ask the question with chat gpt, what is the stock market is doing today, it can use a search component. It can go ahead and browse through search component. I'm not talking about that feature, Nazim. Okay, so let's talk about every large language model. I mean, what you have today, it has some limited memory in it, right? Yeah. So now let us talk about how does this rack systems could able to help you, right? So consider that a rack systems are like a databases, right? You have a database where you put in your own data into it. And so where you're asking your large language model to go ahead and refer to the data that we have in a database and go ahead and fetch the answer. So consider that. Let me just explain a RAG in a different way. Before that, so let's try to understand a very simple way. So consider that you have some kind of a RAG database. We call it as vector database. So where you put in some real-time data. So consider that let's consider that there is a organization who gets a real-time a stock informations, for an example. Let's say real-time stock informations. They put in all the real-time stock informations to this rack systems. And here comes your large language model. And here comes as a user, now you are asking, so what is the, how today the stock market is really doing? So what happens, your large language model go ahead and refers to the data that you have in a vector database, which is a rack system that we're talking about. And it gets the real-time data and it responses you the actual output. It says, okay, today maybe the Amazon stock is doing good, it's high, and maybe it says Meta stocks are lower for 2 points or something like that, right? A RAG is basically you give an additional memory to it, right? So let's go ahead and understand further how it works. So when I'm talking about organizations here, enterprises uses what we call it as RAG, which we call it as retrieval augmented generations, to improve the prompts by additional external data, such as documents are part of them, for an example. So to help the large language model to give more accurate response. See, first what happens, the data is retrieved from the internal store, which is nothing but what I'm talking about, a vector database. It's a database. So then both the prompt and documents are turned into embeddings to calculate how similar they are. Based on the similarity score, the relevant document is selected and added to the prompt. So here we use different kind of vector databases. So it can be Pinecone or Chroma, or it can be Amazon has their own vector database. We call it as Amazon Open Search. You can use any kind of a vector database where you can put all this data, for an example. Okay, saying that, let's get into the very interesting discussion right now, how RAG works, for an example. Okay. So obviously Nazim here says, okay, I'm using ChatGPT 4.2 and it provides the stock information. Absolutely, yes, it provides the stock information, Nazim. But I'm not talking about ChatGPT 4.0. I'm talking about ChatGPT 3.5, if you can able to access that. So it has a limited data. The models that organizations deploy, they don't learn it in a real time. So they have AI agents today. If you're using a search component from ChatGPT, it uses a Google search or maybe any other search engine to go ahead and search. That's a different concept. Okay, so now let us talk about how does this rack system works right now, right? So let's get into the part. Let's say if you want to implement the rack system, that means your large language model doesn't have your own data. Okay, Nazim, I will ask you another question. So let's go ahead with the Nazim. Nazim says that ChatGPT 4 answers the stock, what's the stock market is doing today. Okay, I want you to go ahead and ask this question. So go ahead and ask this particular question. So maybe you're working on a specific organization, okay? And go ahead and ask, what does your organization makes a revenue? Maybe next 3 years. What exact revenue it's going to make? Or let's say, go ahead and ask your large language model or chat GPT, what kind of a project a specific organization, your own organization is doing. So do you think like large language model could able to answer that? Doesn't, because it doesn't have your own internal organization data. So let's talk about a simple rack system here. Okay. See, consider that if you go ahead and ask any large language model, right? Today, let's say we're building a application for a health insurance company. Maybe it can be, we're talking about Policy Bazaar or any kind of a health insurance company that we're talking about. But an existing large language model. So let's say this is where you have a large language model, right? So it doesn't have any informations related to our policies. So maybe consider that Policy Bazaar, they might have 1,000 policies. 1,000 policies has different information. That means 1,000 policies has different schemes. Maybe if you go for one policy, they might give a coverage till 10 lakhs. There might be a policy which gives a coverage for 1 crore. There might be a policy which might give coverage for 5 lakhs. And maybe there is a policy which only covers major diseases. And maybe there is a policy which covers every kind of a diseases in this world. But consider that if you go ahead and ask any questions to this large language model, they might not have this publicly available data. So this is how an organization set up a rack system. So first, an organization takes, let's say, a data, their own policy. Let's imagine Policy Bazaar, they might have thousands of policy documents. They take all these PDFs for an example, right? They take all these thousands of PDFs, and the first step is basically the information extraction. Okay, so first it can be, you might be having a PDF that is coming from your storage platform. You might have a database, right? We extract the information. Next step is we chunk the information, because these large language models are not, let's say when I'm talking about storing this data in a vector databases. So we don't store this huge amount of data as it is. We chunk the information. Just imagine we take this PDF, we cut it, we chop it, then we use something called embedding models. So let's try to understand what's the concept of embedding models. At the end of the day, your machine can able to understand just numbers. It cannot understand your pictures, your words, characters, nothing. It can understand numbers. That means we take this PDF, we cut it, chop it, we use something called embedding models. What does this embedding models does? It takes in your information and which converts into numbers. For an example, let's say you input a text called apple. Let's talk about an apple, a fruit. So let's say you're inputting a word, an apple, a fruit. This converts into relevant number. So consider that an apple, a fruit can be represented as 010181 or something like that, right? So this could be the embedding for a word apple, a fruit, for an example, right? So what happens, this embedding model converts every document, a policy document that you do have, into numbers, and it uses something called vector database. In this vector database, it stores all your informations in it as a numbers. So then comes your actual customers. Okay, so here in a vector database, you have all your internal company's policy. In this perspective, all the Policy Bazaar's policy informations are inside in this vector database. Okay, now let us talk about a customer journey. Because your large language model doesn't have any information about internal company's data. So here comes your customer and he inputs a prompt. He says that, okay, I'm looking for a policy. I have 5 people in my family. I have my father and mother who is greater than 45 years old. And I have my brother. We are 20, somewhere between 25 years old. I'm looking for a policy. My budget is maybe, let's say, I would say around 10 lakhs coverage that I'm looking forward. I would like to pay maybe somewhere around 20,000 rupees a month. Maybe a year, maybe not. Let's talk about, this is the input. He's looking for a policy which can cover the entire family, and they're looking for a policy coverage up to 10 lakhs. Okay. And this is the input prompt. Get me the right policy that can able to help me. This is the prompt that he is inputting. So what happens? He inputs a prompt, right? Basically the input. So this input will be again will be using an embedding model. This input will be again converted into numbers here. So consider that 010181 or something like that. So what happens once this embedding model converts this into numbers, it goes to a vector database and it does something called semantic search. So what is the semantic search? We don't want to get more details on this. We'll go into this program. We will get it. So semantic search is nothing but something called a similarity search. So you know how Google works. If you go ahead and Google some of the informations, let's say get me the nearest pizza shop I can visit. It go ahead and give you maybe more than 1,000 results at a time. But Google uses something called semantic search. It's not exact search. There's a two different things: exact search and semantic search. Semantic search does a similar, it go ahead and fetches a similar items in the list. So consider that you're looking for, you're going to Google and you're searching for, get me the nearest pizza shop, right? It go ahead and get you the nearest pizza shop. It go ahead and give you a three results, and the first result would be the best one because it could be the more nearest pizza shop to your home, for an example. So that's how the similarity search works. So in this vector database, once we do a similarity search, let's say I have 1,000 policy documents. I have 1,000 policy documents of, for an example, of a policy bazaar. It go ahead and fetches maybe from this 1,000, maybe 10 policies are similar to what customer is looking forward. So what happens? This 10 policies will be fetched and it will be given to the customer basically. So what happens from this 1,000 policies, only 10 policies are relevant. So that's what exactly we're talking about, relevant data. It gets the relevant data, the 10 documents, then it inputs this relevant data along with your customer input to the large language model. This is where we are actually invoking a large language model. So along with the relevant data and the input from a customer, then it gives the response. So in the response, you can go ahead and see, okay, so these are the 10 policies, the policy number 1, policy number 3, policy number 4, blah, 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 policy number 10. So it goes ahead and gives, you can pick one among these 10 policies. A policy number 1 can give you 10 lakhs benefit, and you'd be paying around maybe 20,000 rupees a year, right? This is how the similarity search works. So now you understand where RAG systems play very important role, because most of the time your large language models doesn't have any idea about your internal company's document. And again, this is where the importance of the second step comes into the picture. And again, you can able to see that there is no need for fine tuning here, right? So there is no need for fine tuning. I don't want to fine tune my large language model. I can take a RAG database. I can put the any amount of a data that organization needs. I use LLM to go ahead and search in that document and get me the relevant results. So this could be the second approach, and that could be the second cost efficient approach for any organization. As I mentioned, organizations, they should never jump into the training or fine tuning instantly. They need to experiment between whether prompting itself with an existing large language model does works or not, and they will try to implement a RAG systems. They see whether a RAG solution could able to solve their problem, right? So okay, even if the RAG solution doesn't solve their problem, then they go for fine tuning method. So now let's go ahead and check how does this fine tuning actually works. So fine tuning. So fine tuning your foundation models here. So I mean, we are not completely training a model from a scratch. We are taking an existing model which is already trained. Maybe let's say we'll take a model from Llama, which is Meta. Facebook has a model which is open source and free to use. We can take it and I can take my internal documents of my organization. So let's say here I'm giving an example of travel policy documents, documentations. Let's assume it's a health insurance record documentation from Policy Bazaar, for an example, right? So here I will be going, first step is to take my data. Then I would be going ahead and picking the foundation model. So what model that you're going to pick here? So there are a lot of models that you can use. Maybe you can use a Llama model from Facebook. You can use a Claude model from Anthropic. You can even fine tune GPT models as well. And this is our second step. And how in this world you're going to fine tune this model? So if you want to fine tune the model, you need a machine, you need an infrastructure. So that's where the cloud platforms comes into the picture. When it comes to AWS or Azure, or maybe we're talking about GCP, they have an infrastructure where you can go ahead and fine tune your large language models basically, right? So consider that you can take a tool here. I will call it as Bedrock. Yes, we will be exploring a Bedrock in this program. You can use Bedrock, or it can use Azure AI Foundry or Google AI Studio, where you can input your own organization data and you can fine tune an existing foundation model. Then you have a fine-tuned model for your own organizations. That means you would be producing your own version of the large language model, and this large language model is aware and it's tuned to your own organization data. That means I have taken this 1,000 uh, health insurance records from Policy Bazaar. I might have fine tuned it and I produce my own large language model. So once you fine tune the large language model, there is no necessity of a RAG because your model itself aware about all the policy documents. That means what you can directly take your model and where you can go ahead and ask the model related to, okay, so I'm looking for a policy, I'm looking for 10 lakhs coverage, I'm willing to pay 20,000 rupees a year. So I will go ahead and prompt it. I don't need a rack systems, right? So this could be the second approach. But now let us talk about some of the benefits as I mentioned. When we're talking about benefits, so there is no need for an example prompt here. So yes, still you need to input a prompt, but there is no need for the prompt engineering, a complex prompting techniques here. And again, let's say we are talking about it could able to, let's say when you have a necessity of let's say if you're implementing a rack systems or using a prompting is too much costly for you, that could be the scenario where you can able to reduce a lot of cost if you can able to fine tune your large language model. And then comes a privacy risk could be reduced here because you have your own model. You're not using APIs, you're not using any third party platform. When you're talking about data privacy, that's awesome. So then comes token limitations issues you might not have. But let's talk about the challenges here. The main challenges here is the costing basically. So when we are talking about large language models, they're supposed to be trained with a huge amount of data. See, consider that even though we are talking about fine tuning cannot be done with a few examples. You need to have thousands and thousands of examples to train an existing foundation model. Fine tuning a large language models itself costlier than implementing, let's say, a prompt engineering technique or rack systems. Yes, as we go below the graph, it will be difficult and expensive. So fine tuning your large language model would be costlier. So then let us talk about training your own model from the scratch. So do you think, you tell me in a chat window, do you think we can able to train our own foundation models from the scratch? That means, do you think you can able to, you can train your own foundation model from the scratch in your laptop? Maybe in next 1 or 2 hours? Definitely not. You cannot. So training a large language model, or maybe let's say what we're talking about, training your own foundation model from scratch, it's impossible for everyone here. So let's say this could be done by the huge MNCs that's outside in the market. So not every MNCs could able to produce their foundation model from a scratch. The reason is data, then comes the infrastructure cost. For a reason, it's called large language model because it has to be trained with a huge amount of data in the internet. First, you need to grab the huge amount of data, and then comes in order to train this huge amount of data, you need to have a right kind of infrastructure. You need to have a right kind of a GPUs. For an example, let's consider that today an organization uses a GPU which is called H100 GPUs from NVIDIA, which just cost one chipset cost 32 lakhs. I mean, one H100 GPU is not enough for training large language model. They might have thousands of H100 GPUs, maybe more than thousands in their organization, right? So training a large language model from a scratch, we can say it's an ideal for a highly specific task that requires a large amount of domain centric data, first of all, and it provides the highest quality. It has to provide highest quality results, right? So however, what happens, this approach is also more expensive and difficult to implement. So that's where most of the organizations, they don't want to train their own models from scratch. Let's go ahead and take a look a few examples here. So Google has something called Gemini. Yes, Gemini models. Let's see how much Google has spent to train their Gemini Ultra model. It took $191.4 million, right? I don't think so we have such kind of an amount. So then comes, let's talk about GPT-4 from OpenAI. They took around $78.4 million to train it. And let's talk about very small model, a Llama 2 model with 70 billion parameters. It took $3.9 million. Obviously, this huge investment game has been broke by a Chinese model, that DeepSeek. But still, even though we are talking about a DeepSeek itself cost around $6 million to produce a computable model comparing with OpenAI, right? So still that is costlier, $6 million. So training a model is not for everyone, right? So that's the four different approaches for getting started with any kind of a large language model use cases in your organization. This is what exactly that we will be diving deep in our program. So saying that, now let us move on to the next topic, the interesting topic. Okay, so now I do have a good idea about prompting, rack systems, fine tuning, or training a model. So now what we do with that knowledge. So you know how to work with a RAG, where to use RAG, and how to use RAG. So now let us see if I want to build an application with it. So what you do, this is where lang chains comes into the picture. So consider that you want to build a solution for any organizations tomorrow. Maybe there is an organization who is looking for maybe some recommendation systems to be built for your organization. Maybe there is an organization who's looking for building maybe like a health insurance chatbot, like a policy buzzer example that I provided you, or any kind of one use case that you want to work. So how lang chains can play a very important role. Let's try to understand what is this lang chains. It's an open source framework, obviously designed to help developers to create an application that uses large language models. It provides tools and APIs. I mean, you can use lang chains with both Python and JavaScript to build any kind of a large language. I mean, any kind of a large language model applications out of it, actually, right? Okay, saying that, so let's try to understand how does this lang chains work. So consider that when we're talking about AI applications, usually follows the steps to process the data which is received. For an example, let's say there's an e-commerce website, right? So when you click to view an item, right, in a e-commerce website, let's consider that AI looks at the item, for an example, behalf of you, which is in your cart, and what's you have shown an interest before, for an example, to suggest other items might like it. So this data is sent to an AI model to make a recommendation system. I mean, to recommend a new products that you can able to buy. So when building such kind of an applications, let's say the steps needed to be carefully organized, defining what services to be used, how they receive the data, and the format of a data. So this requires many technical details like APIs, data structures, network access, security, for an example. So this is where actually the lang chains comes into picture. So lang chains can be used, as I mentioned, it can be used with JavaScript as well as a Python that helps you make building these AI applications easily. I mean, it handles a complex task. So developers don't have to code all the details. For an example, to interact with AI models, like you want to integrate with Llama model or ChatGPT models, LangChains lets developers simply input their credentials and prompts, and it take cares of technical aspects like endpoint or maybe like authentication, etc. So LangChain it's a simplest form where you can able to chain things together. You can able to chain different components of you building a generative AI application together. That's why it is called LangChain. See, consider that if you want to build any Gen AI application, you need a lot of components. First is LLM. LLM is something which is going to answer your question. You need a memory. You will be inputting a prompt. So you want to build agents, AI agents that we're talking about. You need a vector store where you can put your own internal documents of your organization, a metadata. So you need to chain all these components together. That's where LangChain comes into the picture. You chain everything together and you can able to solve any kind of a problem that your organizations have. Okay. So LangChain is a framework that you use for building a Gen AI application. As simple as that. Okay. Okay. So now let us get into the very interesting topic. Can we, the talk of a town, and what this year is going to be is AI agents or agentic AI. Probably you might have hearing about AI agents along with Gen AI. You might be just buzzed with a lot of words. Somewhere they're talking about Gen AI, somewhere they're talking about large language models. Today they're talking about AI agents. They're talking about something called agentic AI. So what is this AI agents is all about, right? Is that really part of Gen AI? Let's talk about that. Okay. So can we, let's get started. So what is this AI agents? So year 2025 will be all about AI agents, folks. You will be hearing more about it. So AI agents, basically, again, it's again part of Gen AI. So these programs are actually designed to perform, let's say, a specific task based on a predefined rules. Say they operate, let's say we can say within a set set boundaries and do not learn or adapt behind the internal programming. So AI agents, at the end of the day, if I want to put it in a simple words, an AI which can able to take an action. It's an actionable agents. So consider that, let's say for an example, AI agents or agentic AI is nothing but a recipe that you prepare. So consider that we discussed about prompt, we discussed about RAG, we discussed about what else? We discussed about lang chains, right? We discussed about embedding models. So consider that you take, let's say in a plate, okay, in a bowl, you take some amount of RAG, some amount of large language models, some amount of so prompting. You mix it together, you get AI agents, or you get agentic AIs. Okay, so what we're talking about agentic AI is nothing but, so they're advanced AI systems capable of independent decision making. So agentic AI can able to make a decisions by itself. It can learn continuously from you and adapting a new situation without explicit human instructions. Okay, let me just give a simple example of AI agents in a very simplest form. Okay, so let's say you're going to the restaurant. Okay, so here is your family. Okay, you're going to the restaurant. So let's talk about, there's a waiter called Suresh. Okay, Suresh comes and asks you, so what do you like? So what do you like to have today, sir? Okay, so maybe you're ordering. Okay, I would like to order a biryani. So obviously, Suresh is a well-trained a waiter in that particular hotel. But let's say your family orders for a spicy or Rajasthan or Hyderabad biryani. Yes. So you instructed Suresh to go ahead and get the biryani. So that's what exactly Suresh has done. He went to his kitchen and he prepared a biryani for you, and he bought a plate of a biryani to your table. That's what exactly Suresh has done. So now let's talk about Rajesh for an example. Okay. So what does Rajesh could able to do? So Rajesh is again a waiter in same hotel, but consider that now Rajesh came to your table and he asked the question. So what you would like to have today, sir? So maybe consider that you're again, you said that, okay, I would like to order a biryani, a spicy Rajasthan biryani. And we know that we are in a hot summer right now, isn't it? So consider that Rajesh instead of Suresh just, if you make an order, if you order Suresh, he does exactly what you ordered for. So he exactly follows your order. But wherein Rajesh has some more intelligence. So what Rajesh does, so Rajesh understands your previous history, because this is not the first time you're visiting that hotel. Rajesh knows you very well. He understands what you eat when you come to this hotel. And he also considers other factors. He considers the weather into the consideration. He knows that it's a summer and your family came with your kids, and again he considers, okay, what's the situation in a kitchen? Do we if I go ahead and prepare a biryani, do I have all the ingredients to prepare it? How much time it takes? And he also considers what's your favorite as well. Maybe consider that when you're visiting to this particular hotel, maybe you are really interested on vegetarian meals they provide. Maybe some instead of spicy food, maybe you would like to eat some sweet or something like that. So he understands, he has some knowledge on that. So he considers all the scenarios and he gives a recommendation for you. So this is a summer, so and you have a kids, do you like to really order a biryani because it will be spicy for your kids? So that's what exactly AI agents can able to do, right? So unlike a traditional AI, which exactly does what exactly you need, wherein we are talking about AI agents or agentic AI that we're talking about, right? It has an additional intelligence because it can able to act, it can able to access an external factors. It can understand what's the weather and what's the situation in the kitchen. Can we prepare a biryani within a few minutes or not? And it considers your favorite because you're visiting that particular restaurant for a long time, right? So it considers all the situation, and Rajesh as an AI agent or AI or agentic AI makes the recommendation for you actually. So it gives the recommendations, and so obviously it's for the well-being of you, right? That's how the AI agents work. So when we're talking about, if you want to build an AI agents, as I mentioned, it's a mixture of large language models, RAGs, and it can able to take an action. So that means consider that Rajesh is not a real human being here. You're talking to a robot, or it can be a chat application. So you're just asking the AI agent, I would like to order a biryani, but it recommends some good food for you. And you ask, okay, I would like to go for a good vegetarian meal. And this AI agent can take action What do you mean by action? It's not just a chat interface. It can go ahead and book the order in a kitchen. That means someone will prepare the vegetarian meals for you. So that's how it's going to work. So isn't it awesome? So where we are heading towards in the year of 2025, are you really excited to learn this? So let's get started. So now let us focus on the tools that we will be covering in this particular program, the different tools for Gen AI. So let's say here in this particular program, we'll be focusing on not just a one cloud, it's a multi-cloud Gen AI program. So we do cover Azure, AWS, and GCP as well. So now let us get started. Let's try to understand the generative AI tech stack, how it look like. So obviously the first thing, it will be starting from the infrastructure, correct? So we're talking about, consider that if you want to deploy any large language model, you need to have an infrastructure. So this is where the hardware providers like Intel and obviously Nvidia plays very important role. It can be fine tuning your large language model, or you want to deploy such a huge large language model that you're fine tuned. Maybe you need a right kind of a GPU, right? Or it can be AMD. So on top of it, you need a cloud infrastructure, because when we are talking about generative AI is where cloud platforms play a very important role. Yes, there are organizations who might have an on-premises setup. They might have an enough infrastructure, but consider that most of the generative AI applications today run on top of a cloud platforms. It can be Azure, AWS, or a GCP that we are more interested in, because they are the leading platforms outside. So then comes picking the right foundation model is a next step. So because you cannot go ahead and pick the random model that's outside in the market, you need to pick the right model that really solves the kind of a problem that you do have. So on top of it, then you might want to fine tune it. And again, we know when you need to fine tune, when you should not. So then comes on top of it where you want to implement an operations, what we're talking about, MLOps. So then comes, you might on top of it, you might have a data platforms where how you might bring in a data to the model to invoke a model. So then comes an application experience. Maybe on top of it, you want to build an application. So you want to build some kind of a front end application, how your customer is going to use your generative AI models. Maybe you want to build this application for your internal use for your organization. So this is how the stack is going to look like. So when we're talking about Gen AI and the cloud, as we mentioned in this program, we'll be covering multi-cloud Gen AI tools. And let's also talk about why we need to really focus on a cloud. There's no doubt about it. So there are a lot of cloud platforms that's outside in the market. And here we are only focused on the three leading cloud platforms. AWS comes first, then comes Azure, then comes GCP. There's no doubt about it, because they are the leading cloud platforms. That's where you can find more opportunity, right? So yes, we cover Gen AI tools on top of AWS, Azure, and GCP. So followed by that, not limited to cloud platforms alone, open source tools, as we discussed. Let's say we're talking about tools for LangChains, which is an open source tool, right? And certain other tools. Let's explore the cloud-based Gen AI tools that we will be covering in this entire program. Yes, AWS has something called Amazon Bedrock. So where you can able to build end-to-end generative AI applications. Azure has something called Azure AI Foundry, similar to Azure Bedrock, where you can able to build an end-to-end Gen AI applications. So Google has something called Google AI Studio. So we will be exploring all these three platforms in our program, where you will be learning how to build Gen AI applications, as well as what we're talking about building a complete end-to-end AI agents as well. So along with that, we'll be exploring other cloud-based tools which is specific to AI. It can be SageMaker, Azure ML, or Vertex AI, etc. So, and when we're talking about the open source tools that we will be exploring in this particular program, so yes, we'll be exploring a LangChains, which we discussed, but LangChains has other tools like LangGraph, for an example. So we'll be exploring about those tools, and including tools into Hugging Face and certain monitoring tools like MLflow, Evidently AI, or it can be OLAMA or Llama Index as well. And then comes, we'll be also talking about MLOps for LLMs. So what do you mean by that? So we are talking about an operation side of large language models. It's not just you building a Gen AI application is the only part, but focusing on the operation side of deploying your generative AI applications, operating in a production, building an automation around it is so much important. So this is where We'll be also talking about how you can able to also implement an MLOps practices. MLOps stands for machine learning operations. How you can able to implement machine learning operations to deliver any kind of a large language model to the production. So we'll be exploring MLOps. It's all about, let's say, building an automation in terms of preparing your data, versioning it, building a pipeline so where you can able to fine tune these large language models. Maybe once in every 6 months, you want to fine tune your large language models with your own data. So once you fine tune, what happens? You would be producing your own versions of your large language models, correct? And you want to pick one of the best version of a large language model, and you want to go ahead and deploy this large language model to the production, and where you want to implement prompting and prediction systems and a responsible AI as well. So we'll be also exploring that. So then comes, let's talk about monitoring and performance. Okay, so today, I'm sorry. So a lot of folks talk about building a large language models, implementing a RAG system, building an AI agents. That's not just enough here. So monitoring is really important when we're talking about large language models as well. So monitoring ensures, let's say, real-time tracking of your model's accuracy, bias, or maybe drift. So while large language model evaluation checks a text quality, coherence, or correctness, so then we are talking about something called heuristic metrics, such as using a blue or ROG methods to provide a quick rule-based assessment. So whether your large language models are really working good or not. So then comes using LLM as a judge. So what is this monitoring and performance is all about? So consider that you have built a large language model. Let's say we have built a large language model application for a policy bazaar as an organization. So where your customers can able to fetch maybe the right policy that could able to match their match their family. So maybe here comes a large language model responses. Okay, you can go for a policy. This policy A policy A can provide you 10 lakhs coverage and you can pay 20,000 rupees a year. How do you know the response that is made by a large language model or the entire Gen AI application that you have built is correct? How do you know the response that is made by your chat GPT even as it is correct? So how do you believe the each and every response that is made by your large language model is correct? So this is where monitoring and performance comes into the picture. So we'll be working with tools like MLflow and Evidently AI could able to help you in evaluating these large language models. We talk about something called LLM as a judge. So that means you would be using one large language model to evaluate another large language model. Yes, that's how it works. You take the outputs from the one large language model and you would be using another large language model to check the correctness of that large language model. How do you do that? How do you do that? We will explore in this program. So then comes responsible AI. So what do you mean by responsible AI? So building a responsible AI solution is really important for any organization. And you know that in the world of generative AI, a lot of things goes wrong if there is no a strong policy between the user and the AI here. So consider that. Let's talk about the world without responsible AI. Here comes your generative AI model. It can be text to text, image to video, etc. So consider that here, you can, as a user, you can go ahead and ask your large language model to generate some offensive content, right? Isn't it? You can go ahead and ask your large language model to create some offensive pictures. You can ask to create some hate speech content. So yes, if you don't have a responsible AI in between, yes, your large language models could be able to do that. But today, if you talk about any final end product, it can be Chat GPT, Google AI Studio, or any Gen AI applications. It can be DeepSeek. There is a responsible AI in between a user and a large language model. So what is this responsible AI? So responsible AI just acts as a filter in order to make sure that so the output that is produced by your large language model, it is ethical and fair and transparent, secure, reliable, and human centered. So consider what does this so what does this responsible AI does? So consider that if your user, okay, let's also add another arrow mark here. So let's say if a user inputs a prompt, right? Let's say a user is trying to ask, okay, get me some offense. Maybe let's talk about, okay, let's say we will input the prompt, maybe something like this. Go ahead and get me a Windows activation keys. Let's say, for an example, this is a prompt. Obviously, Windows is a licensed software. We are not supposed to get keys illegally, right? It's an illegal. So let's say the user go ahead and ask, get me the Windows activation keys that I can use to activate my Windows. for an example. Go ahead and try it. It won't work. So because there's a responsible AI, because responsible AI understands your prompt and it understands what is ethical and what is fair, and it throws an output saying that no, this response cannot be processed, right? So, and again, consider that in another way, your generative AI models could able to generate some offensive content. That means consider that your generative AI model might have generated some offensive content. This will be also filtered by your responsible AI. And then comes a filtered content will be sent to your actual user. So this is how a responsible AI plays a very, very, very important role when you're becoming generative AI engineer as well. Saying this, we learned a lot. We talked about what is large language model, what is a foundation model, what is a strategy that organization uses to get started with their journey of building a generative AI application. Starting from, okay, first let's go ahead and check. I will use existing model that's available in a market. I will see whether I can adapt an existing model that is available in a market by just doing a prompt engineering. If that does solves a problem, perfect. Otherwise, next step, they try to check whether I can use a rack system. So I will put my data into a database where I can ask my large language model to go ahead and refer to it and answer my question. If that solves a problem, they will go for that. Otherwise, then they go for a fine tuning their large language models, their internal data. Training their models from the scratch, that could be the biggest game, right? Altogether, that comes with a huge investment. Okay, saying that, isn't it, whether it will be a fun, obviously, let's go ahead and have some quick demo without wasting a much of a time right now. Perfect. Let's go ahead and have some fun. Okay, so here we go. So I will be bringing my browsers. Okay, so here I'm on top of AWS. I would like to also show you the portals on top of two cloud platforms. So when you're getting started with an actual program where you can explore the multi-cloud AWS, Azure, and GCP. So let's get started with AWS. So in AWS, we are looking for something called Amazon Bedrock. So let's get into that. So as we are talking about Amazon Bedrock, is a platform. Just imagine Amazon Bedrock has everything that any organization needed to get started with their journey of generative AI. They can build a complete end-to-end generative AI applications on top of it. So we will be exploring the complete generative AI tools on top of AWS, especially Amazon Bedrock. We'll be exploring. Okay, so let's get started. So let's talk about once I go to those providers, right? So providers, who are these folks called providers? See, consider that Amazon has their own models. See, consider that Amazon as a organization, they have their own models. So for an example here, you can see Amazon has around 13 models, which their own proprietary models. But obviously, when we are talking about any industrial use cases, we don't want to just stick to Amazon models itself, because maybe DeepSeek is going good now. Maybe I want to use DeepSeek on top of AWS. So what Amazon has done, they collaborated with a lot of organizations and they have got their own models and they have deployed all these models on top of cloud platform, that is AWS. So behalf of you, they have deployed all the models. So they have models from AI 21 Labs. They have models from Anthropic, the Claude that you know, are obviously Meta, you know, that Facebook has Llama models, or maybe we are talking about Stability AI or Mistral for an example, right? So you can able to use all those models on top of AWS, right? When I go to this model category towards left side navigation panel, even you can see more models that's available here than what is available in the providers. So they have in different categories that you can able to access here. So consider that we are talking about modularity as serverless models, so that you can able to pick. So you can pick any model that works. So consider that if I go to DeepSeek for an example, you know that all the DeepSeek models are currently available on top of Amazon Bedrock, starting from DeepSeek R1, DeepSeek R1 Distill, or maybe let's say any kind of DeepSeek models, reasoning, thinking models that we're talking about, right? So you can able to get started with that. So then comes let's say custom models. Let's say if you want to fine tune your own large language model, you know when you need to go for fine tuning, you can get started with a fine tuning over here, right? So without wasting much of a time, let's go ahead and play. So there is a chat playground. Okay, so you can see this is where I have a chat playground, so where I can go ahead and test some of the best models that's outside in the market. So maybe let me just go ahead and ask. So I will go ahead and pick Anthropic. Claude model, maybe I will go ahead and pick, so maybe Claude 3.5 Sonnet model. So they have a different kind of models. You can see each and every organization, they have got a different types of model. And again, picking the right kind of, and you can see most of those models are based on, let's say, large language models, text to text. They can also do text to image. Does that mean I can randomly go ahead and pick any model here? No, definitely no. There is a practice, which model does works for which kind of a business. We need to understand that, because each and every model that you pick is specifically designed for solving a specific problems in different organizations. So you need to pick that specific model that really works for you. So here for a testing scenario, I will be going ahead with Claude 3.5 Sonnet. I will simply click apply. And towards left side navigation panel, you can see we have a lot of settings. So here you can able to set a system prompt. It's like a context. So what do you mean by context? You might have heard about it. Let's say you want your large language model to act as maybe a teacher. Maybe you want your large language model to respond to your customers as a teacher. You can set a system prompt. That means you will be acting as a teacher for a maybe a fifth grade classes, and maybe you will be going to act as a doctor. Maybe you're going to act as a police inspector. You can set a context here. That means your model changes accordingly. So then comes, we have a lot of hyperparameters we call. We'll discuss what is this hyperparameters. They are dials on knobs in order to get the best results out of your models. You can see there is one thing called temperature. I mean, if you have a temperature value which is lesser, consider that if you have a temperature value of 0.1, it has less creativity. You know that this large language models are, by reason it is made for helping a human beings like us. So when you have a highest temperature, you have too much creativity. That means when you have too much creativity, the truth would be a bit lesser. That means it won't be more centric to the response that you need, but it will have a more creativity. So you won't get the more desired output when you're looking for, when you have a highest temperature, but when you have a lowest temperature, it will go ahead and give you the desired results that you needed. Okay, so here I will go ahead and give it a try. I will go ahead and ask, okay, so I will just say, where do I invest my money? Okay, let's see what the answer it provides. So we are invoking a Claude model right now. So you can see, yeah, as simple as that, it goes ahead and gives the response that we need. The best investment strategy depends on various factors, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, we don't want to read it. It does works. So obviously, right? And you can able to adjust this a particular hyperparameters. So it can add the creativity accordingly. So when I go ahead and ask the same question, it adds more creativity. The response would be even much different here, for an example, right? So the response would be more creative response. So consider that it again depends. So maybe consider that you're building a storytelling platform, for an example. Let's say you're building a storytelling platform. Obviously, I need a more creativity in a storytelling platform. So that means I can set a temperature value as higher. So maybe consider that you're building, so maybe let's say we are building this Gen AI application for a policy bazaar, which can able to help you to pick the best policy. So I don't want more creativity. I need a desired result, isn't it? Right? So I will adjust the threshold accordingly. I will keep the temperature to lowest value. That means it can go ahead and give the desired results. So here, when we're talking about Bedrock, they have two options. One is called chat and single prompt. So what's the difference between this chat and single prompt? So you know that when we are talking about a chat platforms as a memory, right? So consider that I asked, so this is your chat platform. This has a memory of what you have discussed previously, right? It can go ahead and understand whatever the discussions that you made previously, and based on that response, based on the previous responses, it can also give you a more desired results. But you have something called single prompt. It doesn't have any memory. Each and every prompt that you input, it will be a new input for your large language model. Okay, saying that, now let us go ahead and explore some of the image and video generation platforms they have. Okay, so here, let me just go ahead and select the model. Let's see what are the models they have as of right now. Obviously, there are two providers. One is from Amazon, and obviously Stability AI, which is again a very famous platform that's outside in the market, which can also help you in image generation. So obviously, what we're interested in Amazon. So here I would like to definitely give a demo on top of Amazon Nova. So here I have already generated one response. I've used Nova Reel. I will also show you, because it's going to take some time. I will show you how to create a brand new video. Okay, so here is a prompt that I used: create a picture of a dog eating a pizza in a Mars. So I will go ahead and give a different prompt. I will go ahead and select the same Nova Reel model. And so you just you just give me the prompt, because it go ahead and creates a prompt of 6. I'm thinking of maybe create a picture of maybe video, not a picture here. I would say create a video of a cat. So I will go with a cat. So you suggest me if I want to use something else here. So I will let's see if anyone is going to input in in a chat. Let's see. I will see if I can go with that. Okay. Perfect. So I will go with a cat. Let's see. Okay, it's going to take some time. So elephant. Okay, so I can see Deepak says snake eating snake. Okay, I don't want to go ahead and just generate a horror thing. So I will go with elephant maybe. So elephant. Someone has tested a okay, dinosaur is good. Okay, I will go with dinosaur. Okay, so create a video of a dinosaur eating a pizza in a mass. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. It's going to take some time to generate this video. Meantime, I would like to show you a demo. So this is the prompt that I inputted. You can see the prompt is create a picture. I used picture, but anyway, it generates a video of a dog eating a pizza in a mass. Okay, I'm going to make it full screen. Let me just go ahead and play this video. You can see it, how realistic it is. But obviously it's a very simple prompt that I provided, but this prompt has to be optimized to get the more realistic video, because that's the magic of prompt engineering. You need to give the desired prompt to get the desired output. So here is a simple prompt, which is a video of you can say a background looks like, yeah, so it looks like a mass, isn't it, right? Perfect. So then comes, let's see if this video is generated. Okay, it's taking some time to generate. So now I would like to give a quick demo on top of, let's say we discussed about responsible AI. I have already built a responsible AI solution on top of Bedrock. We'll see how this responsible AI works. Okay, isn't it? Perfect. Let's get started. So we discussed about responsible AI acts as a filter. Okay, okay, consider that the use case. Let's discuss about the use case right now. Let me just go ahead and pick my black pen. Okay, let's say we are talking about a use case. I'm building a Gen AI solution. I'm building a Gen AI solution for kids. Okay, I'm building a friendly chatbot for a kids. This kids can able to use this large language models to generate a bedtime story. So bedtime story. I want these kids to only use these large language models to create a bedtime story. I don't want, it can be a kids, it can be adults, anyone who want to use it. So I have created a large language, Gen AI application, which actually generates a bedtime story. But you know that all these large language models can do more than one thing, right? It can, yeah, it not just, it can generate a story, but it can also give you some investment advice, isn't it? If I, you can see the previous prompt that I used, I asked large language model, where do I invest my money? It given some suggestions, right? So, but what if I don't want my kids or my students, they don't want to have any conversation related to finance, investments, cryptocurrencies, anything. So this is the restriction that I would like to add for my peoples here. So how do I create this responsible AI solution? How do I create this responsible AI solution for my customers here? So our goal is our AI should not respond anything related to, let's say, for an example, investments related to things. Okay, so this is the so this is where I have some of the details that I want to create a responsible AI. If I want to create a responsible AI, I have some requirements. So this will be the definition. So investment advice refers to enquiries, guidance, or recommendations regarding management or allocations of funds. And I have some sample phrases. I'm giving some examples to my large language models. What are the scenarios? What kind of a questions my customers might ask? So here is a question: where do I invest my money? Right? So what are the best stocks to buy right now? Can you recommend some mutual funds for me? How do I manage my investment portfolio? So what should I do to maximize my returns? Consider that this is all the investment related advices. Yes, your AI can do, right? So let's say for an example, I will go ahead and grab one of a question here. So what are the best stocks to buy right now? So I will go to my large language model. So, okay, the image is generated finally. Wow, wow, wow. You can see that. Let me just zoom it. Yeah, isn't it awesome? The dinosaur is eating the pizza, the mask. So Amazon Reel is a great. I mean, Amazon Reel is a the great model what Amazon has. So we will be exploring Noah Reel in our program. So where you will be learning how to create, let's say, video ads, production grade video ads for an organization. So this is basically through a UI, but we will be doing it everything through a code using an SDKs, right? Okay, so now let's go back to chat platform. I would like to show this example for you as we discussed. So consider that, let's talk about how this responsible AI plays very important role. So I will be going with Sonnet 3.5. Okay. Okay, let me just pick some different model. Yeah, so where I can integrate. So just a second, let me just go ahead and pick some different model here in a chat playground. So I will go with AI 21 Labs. Maybe I will go with Jumbo 1.5 Instruct. Okay, one second. Let me just pick the model which supports the the responsible AI integration there. So here we go. Let me just pick the legacy one. Yeah, here we have. So yeah, here you can see towards the left side navigation panel, I'm using Jumbo Instruct V1, and we do have this guardrails. So Amazon used to call it as guardrails, which is nothing but responsible AI. You can see I have not configured any responsible AI. Um, so I will go ahead and ask this question: what is the best stocks to buy right now? So obviously, yeah, you can see that it says as a large language model, I don't have an ability to predict the future performance. Obviously, you know that. So it cannot go ahead and get the real time data that's outside in the market, but it gives us a response. But let me just go ahead and pick some different question here. So how do I manage my investment portfolio? So I will go ahead and ask this question. Obviously it gives the answer. Managing an investment portfolio can be a complex process that involves managing information decisions, blah blah blah. So it gives up some answers. Define your investment goals, determine what you want to achieve. It gives us a response, right? But what if, because this is the large language model, a Gen AI solution that I built, I don't want my customers or maybe my kids, I don't want them to discuss anything related to finance. So as simple as that, I've already created a rule. I call it as finance rule, but how I created this responsible AI, you can learn in our program. I will simply go ahead and I will refresh maybe. I will go ahead and select the same model. Okay, so I have selected the same Jumbo Instruct V1. So now I will go down. I will go ahead and select this rule called finance rule. So now I will go ahead and ask the same exact question. So I will go ahead and ask, how do I manage my investment portfolio? Let's see what you get. It says, sorry, the model cannot answer this question. Let me just go ahead and pick any series of questions here, right? So, what should I do to maximize my returns, right? It says, sorry, I cannot help you with that. Or if I go ahead and ask some test phrases, these are the known phrases by a model already knows because I already configured it. But if I go ahead and ask this question, where do I put my money for investment? It says, sorry, the model cannot answer this question. Or I will go ahead and use the word illegal. Yes, the model cannot respond because I have created a responsible in a such a way that and no illegal questions or anything that comes with the word illegal can't be answered by a large language model. Isn't it awesome? So this is about let's say Amazon Bedrock. So yes, then comes Amazon AI Foundry before we going into Amazon AI Foundry. So let's discuss further. So I will be giving a demo on top of Amazon AI Foundry as well. So now let us talk about the career opportunities in generative AI. So obviously you do understand the power of generative AI, and in this today's world, AI is trying to reach every corners of this world, right? So and again, here's a quote. It's not a quote; it's a reality, which is it's a which is quoted by Bill Gates. You know that Bill Gates is pretty much famous as a founder of Microsoft, and now he is pretty much famous of making the predictions of a future. So he did predict at a pandemic. Yes, pandemic just happened in this world, and again, Bill Gates just said it's just 3 months ago. He says AI is the first technology that has no limits. So, what do you mean by that? So, what do you mean by AI is the first technology that has no limits? So, let's talk about your existing technology that you work. See, consider that when we are talking about a different technology that we use in a software development, we talked about blockchains. Blockchains are buzz in for the last previous years, but we are not talking more about blockchain because everything has a saturation. We are talking about DevOps. So DevOps is a standard practice. It has a set of practices that we use, and DevOps has now evolved throughout this world. And DevOps has a saturation. It has its own limits. What we can do with that, right? It is used for building an automation. It can be any software development. But now let us talk about AI. AI has no limits. AI is evolving in a different direction, isn't it? Because let's say we are talking about in early stage, we are talking about simple models. We are talking about machine learning, artificial intelligence, deep learning. Today we are talking about generative AI. So, do you think generative AI will be getting saturated? No. Next to generative AI, we're talking about AI agents. Then what else? We are talking about AGIs, right? Artificial general intelligence. What else after AI, AGIs? We are talking about something called ASIs, artificial super intelligence. So, AI, as Bill Gates said, it's the only technology that has no limits. Okay, this looks like a beautiful quote, isn't it? What does that really matters for you? See, consider that most of the peoples when I talk, they say that okay, Sharath, I'm in a bench, I'm in a specific domain where I don't see the growth. It's stagnated here. I mean, I stuck. I couldn't able to learn much. I don't see a growth here because obviously every technology has its own saturation stage, right? So if you're looking for the career where you never see that particular saturation, AI is the best position for you, right? So that's why where everyone in this world is running beyond AI and why everyone is willing to learn AI here, right? So yes, are you willing to be in a position where you see a continuous evaluation, development in a technology, so where you can keep on learning and you can able to double and triple your salaries? So that's where AI is the best position for you folks. Okay. So when I'm talking about who can be part of generative AI, who should learn this, right? It can be anyone from the tech platform. It can be any tech professionals. Or you can be an existing AI or machine learning engineer. You can be a data scientist, a researcher, and you can be a software engineer as or a developer because you can able to build a generative AI solution for any organization. There is no need for you need to know a data science here, machine learning here. It's not required. You can be a cloud engineer or DevOps engineer. You like to transform yourself into generative AI, or you can be applied scientist or AI enthusiast, or you might be a startup founder and entrepreneur where you're looking for developing or solving a specific problem for any organizations here. So you might be let's say a product manager or a business leader, or you can be anyone who is interested to get into the AI, right? So now let us talk about let's say a specific jobs that is originated from generative AI today. It can be, let's say we're talking about AI prompt engineering. So once you learn generative AI, you can become AI prompt engineer. You can become AI compliances manager, obviously generative AI engineer, generative AI product manager, generative AI design specialist, AI architects, and existing AI architects. So these are a new jobs which has originated, and you can be part of an existing jobs as well. So you can be a data scientist, you need a generative AI. Or let's say you want to become AI architect, you need generative AI, or AI researcher, or AI safety manager, or a machine learning engineer, or an MLOps engineer, or any tech professional. Consider that. So every organization, they want to integrate AI in some fashion. You need to know how to work with RAG system, how to do a prompt engineering, right? So how to play with the data. So it can be any software developer, a full stack, front end, back end, a cloud engineer, or any software developer. So yes, they need generative AI for a unique problem statements that you can solve for any different organizations. And let's talk about how does the numbers would look like, right? The income potential for generative AI here, right? So definitely when I'm talking about, let's say an average salary, I'm talking about someone who has let's say a 2 to 3 years of experience, right? So 2 to 3 years of experience, according to any MNC standards, right? So an average salary in Bangalore, you can able to see it starts from 46.7 lakhs. Obviously, it varies depending on the organization. So, and again, when I'm talking about an average salary across India, it will be around 44.9 lakhs. Let's say if you're looking for an average salary in Pune, it is 43.1 lakh. And and based on your experience range, this salaries could able to triple. I mean, or let's say, depending on what you're getting currently as well, right? And again, a global average is really higher, right? So we are talking about an average salary for generative AI engineer across US somewhere around obviously 115K dollars uh, per year, right? So, and again, let's say when I'm talking about the AI job vacancy trend, right? So, because every organization has a use case today, right? Because they want to build a simple chat applications to, maybe we are talking about an example of how Policy Bazaar could able to um, solve a problems of picking a best policy, or it can be any kind of a use cases in health sector, finance, banking, e-commerce, everywhere there's a use case. So, and again, there's a greater need for an AI engineers, someone who can able to understand generative AI and they can build applications for them, right? And now let us talk about how much time you got. So, do you think you have all the time in this world? Definitely not. Let's talk about a simple example. Always, I would like to mention it took 10 years to replace a cameraman and a pilot. So, what is this use case? You know that drones, drones is revolutionizing a media industry today. But let's just imagine the world before drones, where a chopper and a cameraman is, taking a huge risk in shooting a movie or a video or a news. And this industry took 10 years to replace. Do you think you have such kind of a time so where you can postpone the things? Never. See, consider that the only industry which is transforming faster is AI, because each and every day there's a new update. Each and every day someone is crashing the market, stock market. You know that DeepSeek just crashed the market few months ago. And we're not just today talking about DeepSeek alone, such kind of a models. The year 2025 will be the year of AI agents. And again, then it's going to be evolve, and we are talking about AGIs, ASIs, etc. Right? So AI is transforming pretty much faster. That means if you want to get into the race of getting into the AI, you don't have a much time for. You don't have a much time. You can get into it, and you can able to get started immediately here. Right? Yep. So let's get started. So this is where we are getting started with our generative AI specialization program from 17th of July. So obviously, what is this program is about and what exactly that you will be learning throughout this particular program. So this is a 2 months program. So we are talking about somewhere around, let's say 100 hours of program, and I estimate it is. So we are getting started from 17th of July. So this is a program on every weekends. It's solidly just 2 hours of session every day. That is Monday to Friday, 2 hours every day. So we are talking about the timings is somewhere between 8:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. IST, Monday to Friday. So let's talk about more about this program, how this particular program works. Here we go. What is the structure of this program? So how exactly you will be traveling from this particular program, right? So this is a structure. So the live sessions, this is an 100% live sessions, live hands-on sessions. What do you mean by that? So everything that I do on my screen, you'll be doing it on your screen. That's how it's going to work. So it's a completely hands-on based. So every weekdays between Monday to Friday, 8 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. IST, we'll be having a live sessions, just a 2 hours of session every day. And every next day, you will be receiving an access to the recordings of a live session that you attend. And even on weekdays, on weekdays, we do have what we call it as debugging sessions. So what is this debugging sessions? So there are more than 25 plus projects that we'll be building throughout this program. So consider that whatever I do, you do on your screen. That's how it's going to work. So consider that you got some error, you stuck somewhere, you couldn't figure out that during a live session, you can join the debugging sessions on every Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So we do conduct at least 2 to 3 debugging sessions. You can able to join according to your time phase. That's how it's going to work. It's completely hands-on driven. So now let's talk about the actual program, right? So the generative AI specialization program. So what, as we discussed, throughout this particular session, it's a multi-cloud and open source. We get to cover everything that is needed for you in terms of generative AI. So the goal of this particular program is pretty much simple. So once you're completing this particular program, you could able to literally apply for the jobs in any companies, whether you're looking for An organization is looking for AWS, Azure, GCP, or open source tools, you got a skill, right? Because the world runs on this three cloud, are open source tools that we're talking about. So we are talking about an average of 90 to 100 hours. Because why I say 100, why it is not mentioned here? Because an average, because you do the hands-on along with me, right? I might repeat the step, you might be losing some steps. So trial and error, an average, we are looking for 90 to 100 hours of live session. There are 50 plus hands-on labs, and there are more than 20 plus real-time projects. Exactly, if I want to mention around 25, we say 20 plus real-time projects. So what I mean by real-time, 20 plus real-time projects, including the hands-on projects on various different clouds, we will discuss about the powerful curriculum that's outside in the market, because we are literally proud to say that. So we have the best curriculum that's outside the market, which is a top notch, which covers everything up to date. So because let's say if you're learning something else, let's say consider that, okay, you're talking about any other technology you're learning, not AI. So AI is something that keeps on changing every day. We get to cover what is there in the market up to date, right? So, and again, what we're talking about, one-on-one debugging session, okay? So with that, without wasting a much of a time, yes, here we go. So let's discuss about what is the pricing structure of this particular program. So let's discuss the pricing structure. Once we discuss about the pricing structure, make sure you stay till end of this program, because I'm about to discuss about the awesome curriculum that we have put in, right? So this is going to be exciting. Let's get started. Here we go. So we do have three different pricing options, not one. This is again industry. This is where we have an interesting discussion. Why do we have three different pricing structures? Why not one? Because folks who join this program, they're not just here to learn, right? They need more than that, right? So we do have three different pricing options. We call it as basic plan, advanced plan, and advanced plus plan. So what is this basic, what is this advanced, and what is this advanced plus anyway? So basic plans is for someone, let's say if you're only looking for upskilling, you want to attend live sessions every day, you want access to the recordings, and let's say you need a debugging support, then just go for a basic plan, right? So that's what exactly a basic plan is. But if you go for advanced or advanced plus plan, so this is where you have some premium support features that we offer. So everything in basic is already included in advanced. So live sessions, access to the recordings, debugging sessions is already included. But what you get as an extra is a support, right? So here you get 6 months of technical job support and resume preparation and bonus reattendance opportunity. Let's discuss about this in more detail, right? So let's say when I'm talking about what is this bonus reattendance opportunity. So bonus reattendance opportunity is a feature. By signing up once, you can take our batches twice. So consider that you're joining our 17th of July batch. Even after you completing 17th of July batch, you can still take our next batch. Let's say we might have our next batch maybe in end of August. You can also join the August batch again for free of cost. So why we have this? Because most of the folks are working professionals. Sometimes you might miss some of the live session. So that means when you put your time and investment here, definitely everyone wants to take an 100% value. So for that reason, we give one more chance for you to retake the live sessions. So, and again, you get 6 months of technical job support. So what is this technical job support? How does it works, right? So let's discuss about that. It's a 4-step framework it is. So when I'm talking about the job support is a 4-step framework, what is that? The first step is resume preparation. See, consider that you might be coming from various different background. You might be a software developer, cloud engineer, DevOps engineer. You might be a data scientist. You might be an ML engineer, right? Software tester. You can be any kind of an IT professional, right? So obviously you want to transform, you want to get into the field of AI, right? How does your resume should look like? That's a big question mark, right? So this is where we help you. We sit for a discussion. We understand who exactly you are, what kind of skills you have. So based on that, we help you in biasing your resume. That's the first step. Second step, we also help you in optimizing your job portals. It can be LinkedIn, Indeed, Naukri, whatever you have in your country, right? So why? Because in order to make sure that you get some good quality calls from the reputed organizations outside, right? So that's what exactly we do. And the third step, which I like, and this is where we are really good at, and we play a very important role here. So what we call it as JD decoding sessions. So consider that here, let's assume, like, let's say you have an interview. Maybe you have a technical round of interview tomorrow. Before you go ahead and sitting for an actual technical round of a discussion, you'll be coming and sitting for a discussion with us. So you'll be bringing a JD where I will be helping you in decoding that JD, understanding what kind of a tools they're looking forward, maybe what kind of questions they're going to ask you. So maybe you have mentioned few years of experience in as a Gen AI in your resume. So they're going to ask you some questions. So tell me, what have you done in terms of Gen AI? Have you built any end-to-end generative AI application? Right? You need to have some story, a story that can win an interview. Right? So we help you in narrating that particular story. Then comes a technical job assistance, a technical job support. What do you mean by that? As a fourth step, consider that you're already in a job, maybe you need some assistance, right? You need some technical job support, you need some sample code, you need some consultation, you need some brainstorming and architecture review, right? So you can still use this technical job support. So that's how technical job support works. It's a four-step approach. So this is about the 6 months of technical job support and resume preparation that I'm talking about. The next thing, if you go for the topmost plan, the only difference is instead of you getting a 6 month support, you get 1 year support. That awesome, isn't it? And then comes you have still bonus reattendance opportunity. Then we have another feature called instant access to recordings. What is exactly is this? So you don't need to wait for next 2 months to complete this program. So what happens? Folks who sign up for the topmost plan, which is, we call it as Advanced Plus plan, you get an instant access to our previous batch recordings. I mean, the previous batch recordings we just completed last 3 weeks ago. You'll be getting an access to that, and you can get started with any topic, any module, anytime, and still you can attend the live sessions. So that's how it's going to work. So those are the three plans. See what's your requirements. You opt for it, right? If you want to see the pricing in USD, our basic plan would be costing around $499. Our advanced plan would be around $449, and our advanced plus plan will be around $644, $649. I'm sorry. So, but when it comes to INR, your basic plan would be 37,999, and advanced would be 40,999, and for advanced plus plan would be 45,999. So, saying that, so here we go. So we do have an awesome surprise. So for the folks who stayed till end of this particular program, they only come to know this. So obviously we are talking about. So it's a kind of a ritual that we do. So it's any new batch that we conduct for the first 10 lucky. Registered peoples, they get an awesome discounts to sign up for this particular program. So usually we don't provide discounts. This is only for the first 10 registrations. Always we do this kind of a ritual. It's strictly till first 10 registrations, but you only get to hear about this after I discuss about the curriculum. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's discuss about the awesome curriculum that we have put in. Let me just go ahead and bring the curriculum that I'm talking about. I will also share you an access to this PDF where you can go ahead and download this. Perfect. So here we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and discuss about the Generative AI Specialization program, where you can able to master AI agents in this program as well. So let's get started. So we do have displayed everything in this curriculum. So go ahead and access your table of content, the curriculum, the program fee, testimonials. Go ahead and listen to testimonials. See what our what the folks who have already taken different trainings from our program, what they say. So let's get started with the curriculum. Perfect. So we do have totally 11 modules in this particular program, which covers everything that you need to know in terms of Gen AI. So let's get started with module number 1. So we are talking about introduction to generative AI. So this is a module where I will be introducing you to the world of Gen AI. So you'll be understanding everything what's happening today in the market in terms of Gen AI. So this is where we'll be getting started from the scratch, understanding how this Gen AI is evolving, the different types of generative AI tools, understanding what we call it as this foundation models, embedding models, and the most important thing, what you have already learned in this particular demo session, understanding what makes LLM to the production. We are talking about this 4 pillars of LLM to the production, right? We'll be talking in depth throughout this particular program. And obviously we talked about a rack, but there is something called graph rack, there is something called CAG, and there is something called CAG or KAG. So what is exactly is that? We'll be discussing about that, right? So then comes module number 2. So this is where we'll be diving deep into understanding prompt engineering. As I'm talking about in this demo session, prompting is not just about going and asking a question in a chat GPT. It's more than that, applying an engineering. So there are a lot of different tactics that you'll be learning, understanding prompt engineering, right? So understanding what is basic prompting, being clear and direct, assigning roles, so formatting output with your AI, how to avoid hallucinations. So we'll talk about more, right? And we build an end-to-end projects with that. So then comes module number 3 is where we dive deep into the generative AI capabilities on every cloud, because every cloud is unique, because every cloud has their own market, right? Every cloud has their own customers, right? At end of the day, you will be serving an organizations who want to use AWS or Azure or GCP. So here we'll be diving deep into the most interesting tools that's outside in the cloud platforms. Let's say when I'm talking about starting from exploring the different kind of models. See, the internet, the market is crowded with a lot of models today. Picking the right model to solve the right problem is very important. So we'll be diving deep into understanding the choosing from the leading foundation model which works for your organization, which works for your use cases. So here we are talking about exploring AWS for generative AI. So this is where we'll be exploring about Bedrock. We'll be exploring all the different components what Bedrock offers. Then we'll be exploring Google AI Studio, where we are specifically talking about Gemini models, as well as exploring, let's say, Vertex AI on top of Google Cloud Platform. So Vertex AI on top of GCP's keep on evolving. They have a new tool. If you go ahead and compare the curriculum that we have for the previous batch and the current batch, has been a lot of updates in that. So we have included a lot of new things here, starting from Vertex AI Studio, agent builders on top of GCP. Then we are talking about Azure for generative AI. Specifically, we'll be revolving around Azure AI Foundry. So we'll be exploring about various different tools on top of Azure AI Foundry. Then comes module number 4. This is where we'll be getting started with text generation on all the 3 cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. We'll be exploring various different models for generating a text, right? So there are different projects. Then we are talking about Azure AI Foundry for text generation. We'll be exploring about different APIs, what Azure AI Foundry offers in terms of text generation. Along with that, we will be also exploring open source tools as well, talking about LangChains, Llama Index, etc. Then we are talking about Google AI Studio for text generation. We'll be exploring various different APIs they provide. We also build one end-to-end real-time food recommendation AI agent on top of it. So then comes module number 5. So this is where we'll be diving deep into what we call it as RAG on top of all those 3 cloud platforms, because every cloud has their own RAG capabilities. We will be exploring how you can able to build an end-to-end RAG application on top of Amazon Bedrock, as well as Azure AI Foundry on Azure, as well as Google AI Studio with Vertex AI. So then comes module number 6 is where we'll be exploring image generation and multimodal capabilities. So it's inclusive of image generation tools as well as a video generation tools, right? So obviously we are talking about tools like Bedrock Nova, Bedrock with Titan model, multimodal embedding. And on top of Google AI Studio, we'll be talking about, so obviously the latest video generation tools like VO2 and VO3. Obviously VO3 is not yet accessible for you in India if you're in India, but still we'll be exploring VO2 and other models for video generations as well. So we are talking about Azure AI Foundry and exploring about the different tools they offer for image generation as well. So then comes module number 7, which is a dedicated module for where you can understand, so what is exactly fine tuning, and we'll be also exploring how you can able to use Gemini APIs, and we'll be learning how to fine tune a large language model with our own custom data, and we'll see how we can also use the custom build model in our use cases. So then comes module number 8. Obviously the most interesting, the awaiting module, the module for year 2025, AI agents. There's a lot of new updates on this particular module for this batch. So this is where we'll be exploring about the complete possibilities of AI agents. We'll be exploring about AI agent capabilities on top of Amazon Bedrock. We use the tools on top of Amazon Bedrock to build a real-time AI agent. As I'm talking about, which can even take some actions, right? So it's going to be most interesting. And we are talking about building an AI agents with Gemini APIs. So Google has a lot of updates in terms of building an AI agents. So we'll be building a complete end-to-end AI agents workflow with LangChains. So then comes we are talking about deploying your AI agents to the scaling environment. So then we are talking about building an AI agents on top of Azure. Azure also got a lot of capabilities on top of Azure AI Foundry. So we'll be learning how to build AI agents, integrating various different tools what Azure AI agent offers, like code interpreter, file search, Bing grounding, Azure AI search, which acts as a vector store for us, etc. And here we go again, Google comes back again. So we are talking about Google Agent Development Kit is a new update. We call it as ADK, which is an agent development kit. What Google has offered, we'll be exploring about that and getting started building an end-to-end project with that. So then comes the world today talks about A2A. A2A, what is that? Agent to agent, right? How you can able to collaborate multiple agents together, not one agent, multiple agents. What if if I can able to replace the complete software industry, right? I can have an AI agent which I call it as a manager. I can have another AI agent which I can call it as a team leader. I can have another AI agent which I call it as developer. A developer agent develops a code. A team leader agent manages that particular developer, and manager agent maybe he picks the requirements and gives the job to the entire team, right? It's going to be more interesting. So then obviously we will be also covering MCP, which we call it as Model Context Protocol, making a lot of sound in the market. So how you can able to use Model Context Protocol or MCP to build AI agents. And then we are talking about multi-agent systems, right? How you can able to have multiple agents together. So then comes module number 9, the most important and interesting module that you need to learn if you want to become a generative AI specialist: monitoring and performance evaluation. How you can able to monitor? Let's say if you go ahead and ask a question to a chat GPT. So tell me what's the weather today, or tell me whether it's going to rain today, right? It gives an answer, obviously. It gives some answer. How do you ensure the answer is correct? How do you verify the facts, right? How do you monitor the quality, the accuracy, right? How do you monitor, let's say, if there is any offensiveness in that particular tag, if there is any biases in that, right? This is where we'll be exploring the monitoring and performance evaluation on all the different cloud platforms. There are various different projects. Here we'll be using the very famous open source tools like Evidently AI, ML Flow. We will learn how to do the performance evaluation of these models. So then comes module number 10. This is where we are talking about ethics and deployments in generative AI. So this is where we'll talk about responsible AI. The same demo that I provided in terms of responsible AI, you will build and hands-on with me. You will be learning how to implement this responsible AI. Then obviously we will be also talking about the operation side of large language model operations, which we call it as ML ops for LLMs. And we also talk about enterprises ready features for A2A agents. When you're building an A2A agents on top of your organization, what are the good standards, the practice security measures that you will be taking? We'll be also talking about that. Then comes the last module, module number 11 will be a self-based videos. We don't have live session for module number 7, module number 11. So what is this? What exactly we do? Obviously, today we are also talking about something called vibe coding, right? So vibe coding could be a concept for someone who, I mean, so where we can able to complete replace a software developers, as someone who writes a code, a full stack developer. Literally, it has a possibilities. I never say no for AI. So definitely AI will replace software developers. Some kind of a jobs will definitely replace. Obviously, I'm not going to say no for that because AI has such capabilities. But the answer is again, if a developer is not going to harvest the power of AI, he will be get replaced easily. So this is where we'll be exploring module number 7. We'll be exploring all the vibe coding tools like using Amazon Q for developing software applications, how you can use GitHub Copilot for developing a software applications. Not just that, we'll be exploring other vibe coding tools like Cursor, which is way more better than any other tool, which I love it. So Windsurf, Replit, we'll be also exploring that. So this is the best curriculum that we do have. So please go ahead and check. We have listed detailed projects that we will be building: a career code chatbot, and AI agent with MCP, and AI agent, multi AI agent with LangGraph and Mistral models. So you can go ahead and refer to the different projects that we'll be building over here. You can refer everything in this PDF, and you can able to see the tools that we'll be mastering, the skills that you can able to master, and you can add it on your resumes. And you can check the pricing structures here. And as well as definitely you can scroll down, you can check the testimonials. Definitely I would ask you folks to check what people's and what people's have done with our program, and what kind of goals they could able to achieve. So just listen to them, right? Because they are the best peoples to tell the story, right? So yes, so let me just share an access to this PDF, and now let me just reveal the surprise that I'm talking about. So here I'm going to share three different links to your chat window. One second. The first link where you can proceed with the registration for this particular program. The second link where you can able to download the curriculum. Just click on this particular second link. You can simply download curriculum. So I will also share the contact info of mine. I would recommend you folks to call me, text me. One second, let me just input my number. So please feel free to call me, text me anytime. So we'll discuss and we'll do some consultation for you. And then you can go ahead and proceed with the registration. If you have more questions, you can call me in this number. So In a meantime, let's talk about the surprise. Obviously, most of you folks might be interested in going ahead and signing up for obviously advanced or advanced plus plan, isn't it? So obviously obviously, right? Because so you get twice the chance to take a live sessions, right? So we all working, so you don't want, obviously at the end of the day, when you put your time and investment, you want to take 100% of value. So you need an access to twice the chances to take a live session. If you're going to miss something in a current batch, you get still an access to the next batch as well, and the support that I'm talking about. So are you looking for advanced plan or advanced plus plan? Great. And this is where it helps you. The surprise is, are you looking for advanced plan? Don't register for that. That's the surprise. Yeah, what I mean by that, are you looking for advanced plan, so which is costing 40,999? Don't register for that. In the price of basic plan, you get advanced plan. So that means, so go ahead and register for basic plan, so which is costing around let's say 37,999. So let me just pick my pen quickly. So go ahead and register for basic plan, which is costing around 37,999, and we will upgrade you to advanced plan for free. It's like you register for basic, you get advanced, right? You will be automatically upgraded. And again, so this is for the first 10 registrations per se, yes, but we don't have the 10 seats left. So we do have just 5 seats left for this registration. But you can say, why I did say 10, why it is 5 now? Because folks who call us early, folks who discuss about that program early through phone calls, we give this offers for them. So far, we do have 5 seats left. For the first 5 registrations, they get access to the free upgradation. That means if you go ahead and register for basic, you get advanced. In the same way, are you looking for advanced plus plan? That means you don't need to wait for next 2 months. So you can get started with our program immediately. So then you simply go ahead and register for advanced plan, which is costing around 40,999. You will be upgraded to advanced plus plan completely for free. So it applies same for USD. Are you looking for basic plan? Sorry, are you looking for advanced plan? Register for basic, you get advanced. Register for advanced, you get advanced plus plan. So that's how it's going to work. So please go ahead and take an action. So before we sold out the free upgradation offer, definitely I would ask you to go ahead and check our testimonials, listen to the people's how they could able to make it. We have helped peoples from non-technical background to transform into the AI industry. So just listen to the testimonials, and you ask million questions. I'm here to help you. So go ahead and check who is exactly Psitron Technologies. So we are based out of Bangalore. We are supported by Government of India, incubated in PSG staff. We have represented ourselves in multiple international stages. So yeah, so go ahead and check. So now let me just open the session for Q&A quickly. So you can ask million questions. Let me just start answering that. Okay. So, yep. So let's get started. Let me just enable the option for you to unmute the mics. Just give me a sec. Let me just stop presenting my screen and let me just give that option. Yep. Here we go. I believe you could able to ask your question. Let's
Hi,
go
sir.
one by one. Yep. So you can just mention your name and then
Yeah,
we can.
Akram here, sir. So what is the requirement of starting this course? For example, we need to understand Python before starting this, or what is the basic things?
Good question. So let me just answer that. So what is the prerequisites to get started with this particular program? The only prerequisites you should be from, I mean, you should able to understand what's exactly a software, how software industry works. And when it comes to programming, yes, you need to have Python basics to get started. I'm not expecting advancement in a Python. You don't need to have a knowledge of data science or statistics or probability, not mandate, but you need to have a basics of Python. So what I mean by basics of Python to get started with this program. So obviously when I'm explaining the code, understanding basic logics, if condition, the while condition, the for loop, if I explain that, you should be in a position to understand what is exactly that. So that would be more enough. You need to have a Python basics. Definitely yes, you need to, because throughout this program we'll be working on Python. Python is must. I mean the basics is must. So get started. And again, this is another question. There are folks, they might be good at other programming languages. They might be good at JavaScript, Node.js. I mean, so sorry, JavaScript, .NET, C++, etc. So this is what exactly we are trying to do. This is not a data science program or Python program. We don't teach Python or data science here. Just completely out. So what we do from the couple of batches, so we started providing what we call it as free resources. I mean, uh, if you don't have much basics of Python, you want to refresh the Python basics before you taking the live sessions, yes, we give this free resources which is completely out of a scope for
Hello.
our program. So yeah, once again, let me just complete, then you can talk. Yeah. So this free
Okay.
resource will help to refresh your Python basics. You can, there are tutorials and there are practice materials. If you can able to practice that material, you can do that parallelly when you're getting started with the program. And if you can able to do this, all the practice that we provide in that practice Python practice materials, you can become pretty much decent in that. Yeah. So go ahead, folks, ask you a question. You can ask your question in a chat. You can unmute your mic. We can start talking. Please go
Thank you,
ahead.
Sharath. Thank you.
Sir,
Srinivas here.
I
Yep.
Hello,
So can you
Srinivas
one by
here.
one?
I wanted to ask you that like the
Yeah, sure.
platform, how are you going to get the platform access like Azure, GCP, and AWS? They're all paid platforms to use particular this one, right? So how are we going to get the access of those?
Perfect. Good question. So, Srinivas is asking a question. Okay, we're going to work with cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. So, do we need to pay any subscription for them to get started? No. See, every cloud platform they provide, let's say, free trial to get started with the cloud platforms. It can be AWS, Azure, or GCP. So, those free trial credits would be more than enough to get started with this particular program. So, definitely yes. What happens sometimes? It's a good practice that when we are working on a cloud, we learn, we delete, we learn, we delete. That's a practice, right? Once you're done with learning, you delete the resources because you're not running any business, you're not making any money out of it. So for that reason, we learn and we delete. Sometimes what happens, folks might forget to delete because we usually do, and you might see very minimal bills. And again, you don't want to pay the bills because when what I say, when you're working on a cloud, if you're getting a bills, don't pay the bills because we can request those cloud platforms to waive those bills off. 90% of the time it does works. So to getting started with the program, the free trial limits the cloud platforms provide would be more than enough. Yeah, Srinivas, thanks for asking that question. I will go to next Vinith Kumar, if I'm pronouncing your name correct. So go ahead, you have raised the hand. So you can also raise your hand if you want to talk. Go ahead. So our we do have Pragya Kushal. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Please go ahead.
Hello,
Yep. How do I pronounce your name? Correct me, please. Yep.
that is Pragyanshu Kaushal.
Pragyanshu. Perfect. Yeah,
Yes.
Pragyanshu, go ahead.
Hello. I just want to know that what are the chances of getting a perfect job through the course?
Okay. So what is the perfect chances to get the job? So here is this is how it works. Let's say for an example, let me just repeat that particular step. So we do have, when you go for either advanced or maybe advanced plus plan, we do have this support. What we're talking about, this 6 months or 1 year of support that you're going to opt for. So this is where exactly what I'm talking about, a 4-step framework that helps you to reach your goals. I mean, figure out your job, for an example. So here I'm not going to use that word. What
Hello.
sometimes they use, so what they call it as a job guarantee program, right? No one can able to guarantee the job. So if someone is guaranteeing a job, maybe he is the person taking he is the person attending the interview behalf of you, right? So that's not what I'm doing here. That's what exactly we are trying to do. No, so no one can guarantee you the job. So but what we can able to make sure that we can able to feed you an enough confidence that you can able to crack your job. So this is what exactly, what is the first thing, the first foremost thing that you need to have. First is a resume, right? We help you in optimizing your resume, and then comes we help you in optimizing your job portals, so where you can able to get more interview calls. So if you're getting an interview call, doesn't mean you got the job again. So that you need to have obviously the solid preparation, a strategy in attending the interview, right? So this is where we help you. So consider that before you going ahead and attending any technical round of an interview, you can sit for a discussion with us. You can bring the JD. We can help you in decoding this particular JD, right? So we can able to help you in decoding, where we can able to feed you an enough confidence that helps you to clear the interview, right? So they might be asking you a question. So tell me, what have you done in terms of Gen AI in your previous organization, right? So you need to have some solid story that convince them, right? So you need to address the counter questions or scenario based questions, right? This is how we help you in terms of getting prepared for the job.
Sir, your ebook is not opening.
Okay, so let me assist you with that. So we will check that. Not a problem. So we will reshare you the link again. So it is packed as a zip file, if I'm not wrong. So please go ahead and see if you have there's a tool which is called WinRAR or something. So maybe you can check that. So that might help you to go ahead and unzip it. Yeah. So let me go to the next person. Is
Hello,
Pradeep?
sir.
Pradeep, go ahead. You
Hello.
can. Yeah.
Sir,
Yeah,
is
Yogesh.
there any is there any career opportunity for freshers who completed just engineering in this year, who want to become a AI engineer, ML engineer in that domain? So, is there any opportunity for that?
So definitely, yes. You freshers as an opportunity for all the AI kind of. But the thing is, so where exactly you want to position yourself is really important, Yogesh. When you're saying AI engineer, ML engineer, those are the general words, right? So there is a position called AI engineer. There is something called data science. There is something called ML engineer, right? If you want to become a data scientist, that's a different thing. If you want to become a data scientist, you want to have an in-depth knowledge of Python expertise. Let's say you need to have a good knowledge on statistics, algorithm, etc. That's different, right? When you want to be what we call it as data scientist. So here we are talking about generative AI engineer or gen AI engineer or prompt engineer. So where you will be building a generative AI applications based on the models which is already deployed in the production. So let's say you'll be using the tools like Bedrock, Azure AI Foundry, or let's say using Google AI Studio, or let's say using other open source tools to building an end-to-end generative AI applications. You have an opportunity in both. So there are beginner level jobs today in generative AI. There are beginner level jobs in prompt engineering as well, Yogesh. Yeah. So
Yes, sir.
please go ahead,
But
unmute your
uh,
mic. You can start talking.
yes, sir,
Yeah,
but
Yogesh.
required for this core required AI knowledge, ML knowledge, deep learning knowledge, because
No, so you don't need
these are
to
the
have
subset of.
any data science knowledge to get started with this particular program. So this is purely into let's say it's purely into generative AI. So we'll be talking about how you can able to get started with generative AI, building a end-to-end generative AI applications. Yeah. So you don't need to have any data science knowledge, etc. Yeah.
Okay, sir. And
Yeah.
sir, Python language, which level of you require, like
You
NumPy,
need to
Pandas,
have
and
the
any way to know?
basics. You need to have a basics of Python. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. To get started. Perfect. Okay, so go ahead. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask me. So in the meantime, I'm going to check the questions in the chat window.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Please go ahead, Vinit.
Sir, my doubt was when we tried to download the book, it was not downloading and getting the app. And another thing that if we use AI agents, like if we are using Android-based softwares for AI agents, so how can we do such API? Because they were trying to get pricing for that API.
Okay, so obviously, let's say we are talking about, let's say, when you're using the cloud platforms, it is pricey. You cannot use any free tools that's outside, because let's say we are talking about learning how to build a production grade generative AI tools. So this program focuses on how you can able to learn how to build this end-to-end generative AI applications. Yes, as I mentioned, to getting started with this particular program, the free trial would be more than enough to get started. So yeah, so but when you're working in a company, so you don't need to worry about the pricing, because the company would take care of it. So but yes, for getting started with this program, the free trial limits what cloud platforms offers would be more than enough, Nitin. And when it comes to the free ebook, please install WinRAR. You can able to unzip it from it.
Sir, the free trial would only be for just $300, but the Azure gives $300 as a free credit, but it
That would be more
only
than enough.
$150
That would be
at
to get
log.
started with the program. Okay, so I will answer another question in the chat window. Yeah. Okay, so we do have one more question from Angelina. So yes, Angelina, I'm a trainer for this particular program. So I will be the one who will be taking this particular program. So I'll be your point of contact till you complete this particular program. Yep. So we do consultation as well. So as we are talking about Psitron Technologies, we are into two things: corporate retail training as well as the servicing as well. So you're being into the corporate, the retail training basically. Yeah. Perfect. I can see Ajan says, okay, you have an issue in visiting the website. So please, the website is ai.citrontech.com. So please go to that. So if you're downloading ebooks, yeah, check. Let me know if you're facing any difficulties. Okay. Perfect.
Sarath, hi Sarath.
Hey Pradeep. Yep. Finally.
Hi.
Yep.
Actually, I'm working as a data engineer.
Perfect.
So if I'm looking for, if I'm learning Gen AI and looking for a career switch, so it will be like a career switch, or I can integrate Gen AI as one of the part of the skill in my portfolio.
So both works. So consider that, let's say for an example, having a generative AI skill sets as on top of a data engineering would be the perfect match, because as you are talking about, you are a data engineer. What exactly you do? So you build data pipelines to you
Yes,
orchestrate.
ETL pipeline and dashboarding.
Exactly. So consider that you can, let's say, as a data engineer, you would be also someone who would be responsible for doing data cleaning as well in some as in some pipelines. It's based on the industry. So definitely you can use maybe AI agents, or you can use generative AI tools over there, which can able to help you in understanding the impurity in your data. So understanding that. So there are, I mean, if I want to point one use case, right? So something that you can able to do, but definitely doing a career switch into generative AI can also give you some more benefits, because what we are talking about, what's the buzz outside in the market and having the amount of opportunity that's outside in the market. So both does works, Pradeep, for you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let me know. Uh, so Angelina, so we are there in this industry for the last 10 years. So I mean, anything related to AI, MLOps, are a cloud platform. So we are the experts that's outside in the market. So please let me know if you have any specific questions that I can able to answer. Yeah. Yes, we do have. So another thing that we do is, Angelina, so like we work with corporates. So let's say when we're doing a corporate training, so we upskill their team. We also build a viable prototype for their organization to get started. So we have done that implementations. Yes. I'm talking about not the training. I'm talking about the implementations. Yes. Okay, so saying that, I will spare few more minutes, folks. If you have any questions, feel free to just give me. I mean, so just mention that in the chat window. Let me help you with that. So let me just discuss about. So Angelina, if you have more questions, let's connect. So let's say if you want to understand what kind of a corporate trainings we do, what kind of an implement we do, I would recommend you to contact us in this number. So because you have more questions related to the implementation, the corporate trainings, so I would recommend you to ping me the WhatsApp in this number. I'm sharing that to you. We can schedule another call. We'll discuss in detail. Yeah. So okay, so here we go. Perfect. So okay, I can see you're looking for the solution, not the training. Perfect. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll connect with the right team within my organization. If you have any customer requirements, let me help you with that. So definitely we are very much happy in that terms. Thank you. Yeah, Swami is asking, can we connect sometime tomorrow, Swami? Please feel free to call me, text me anytime. I will be there to receive your calls. Perfect. So great. So I will spare a few more minutes. Let me just quickly rewind or rediscuss about the offers that we do have. So we are talking about the free upgradation offers. So let's say, are you someone who is looking for advanced or advanced plus plan? Don't register for advanced or advanced plus plan. So you're looking for advanced plan, then simply go ahead and register for basic plan. You get advanced. Or if you're someone who's looking for the topmost plan, the benefits that you get when you go ahead and register for the topmost plan, you can get started with our program immediately in next 24 hours, and with the support from us, and you can parallelly start attending the live sessions from 17th of July. So then don't register for the topmost plan. Simply register for advanced plan. I'm sorry. So simply go ahead and register for advanced plan. So we will be upgrade you to the topmost plan, right? Yep. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a typo here. So you need to go ahead and register for advanced plan. Register for advanced plan. So then you will be then you will be upgraded to advanced plus plan. So this offers us for the first 5 registrations only. So folks who register for basic, they get advanced If they register for advanced, they get advanced plus. Yeah. Angelina asking the question, are you going to give the experience on live projects? 100% yes. So these are the real-time hands-on projects that we will be building throughout the live session, Angelina. So you can go ahead and refer to all the different kind of projects that we build throughout this particular program. So you can download the PDF that I've shared. So these are the projects, how these projects are built. Whatever I do on my screen, parallel, you'll be going ahead and building it on your screen. That's how it's going to work. So you can refer to that. Yes. So all those projects that we will be building it during the live sessions itself. Yeah. So we do have different variants of projects, starting from prompt engineering till building an end-to-end RAG application, building a complete AI agents, and using the latest available frameworks that's outside in the market, talking about using MCP, using A2A, talking about multi-agent frameworks, etc. Perfect. Angelina, we are doing it for the last 10 years. We'll be doing it again and again. Yep. Perfect. Okay, folks, I will spare a few more minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Let me just share the links once again in the chat window. The first link is for the registration. So once you click on this, the first link, you'll be redirected to a landing page. Yes. So here you can go ahead and find the same details, whatever we discussed right now. So yeah. So you can go ahead and check the detailed curriculum that we do have. So all this 11 modules that we're talking about. And so you can able to get the project details, what exactly we build. You can go ahead and check it. Yep. You can able to check the demo that we conducted previously. And here you can go ahead and directly talk to us. You can just say, let's talk, send a query so we can connect. So, and you can go ahead and click register button. So, and you can go ahead and proceed with the registration. Here we go. And here, once you're redirected, so you'll be redirected to the payment page. So where you can get some more details. What is exactly a basic plan, advanced plan? If you want to register through INR, you can choose Indian participants. Or if you want to proceed with USD, you can choose USD option. And you can also go ahead and select any of the plan that you're interested in. Okay, as we are talking about an offer, are you looking for advance? Don't register for that. Simply register for basic, you get advance. Or if you're looking for advance plus plan, simply register for advance, you get advance plus. So you can go ahead and mention your details, and so you can able to check all the different kind of payment plans that we do have. So whether you want to go for UPI cards, or we do have all the different kind of EMI options and major credit card. You want to go for a payment split. So let's say we do offer a minimum of 3 months to maximum of 24 months EMI tenure. You can also check what's the interest rates for the different kind of credit cards that you do have. So we also provide EMI on debit cards. Currently, we support two cards. One is HDFC and Indus Bank. So we are using the Razorpay official payment partners. We are the trusted business. So you can go ahead and use this payment options to proceed with registration. Similarly for international, the USD's payments as well. Yeah, perfect. So Shahik asking a question, what kind of a job roles we are suitable after pursuing this particular program? So let me just go back to that particular slide that we discussed. Yes. So these are the various different positions where you can suit yourself, Sahik. So one is, let's say, let's get started from one is the generative AI engineer, generative AI design specialist, generative AI product manager. We're talking about, let's say, AI architect, AI research, AI safety engineer, machine learning engineer, or MLOps engineer. Or you can get started with AI prompt engineer, robotic engineer. Let's say we're talking about cloud and DevOps engineer. If you want to migrate into Gen AI, software developers. If you are an existing software developer, you want to get into Gen AI, or any tech professionals who want to get started, or where you want to upskill and you want to add Gen AI on top of your resume. So consider that you can be a software developers. Today, software developers uses Gen AI tools, right? So, are you want to be a unique position yourself into Gen AI? So, generative AI product engineer, generative AI engineer, or maybe AI prompt engineer would be the positions basically. So thank you very much. Interesting. Kindly share PPT. So no, we won't be sharing a PPT for a demo session. So we'll be sharing a demo session recordings. So where you can able to find the complete content over there, right? So you will be getting the recordings by tomorrow morning. So you can able to start accessing this particular recordings as much long you can. So we won't be sharing a PDF. So yes. So perfect, folks. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for spending your time. I really appreciate. I believe you enjoyed. I believe you today. You have learned something that's 100 percentage. Maybe I will add an infinity after that. It's going to definitely help you for your future. So AI is today. It's not tomorrow. AI is today already, and it is transforming and and it's adding a value for everyone today. And people who harvest the power of AI, definitely they're going to rule the world. So thank you so much for spending your time, and feel free to call me, text me anytime. So yes, and go ahead and sign up for our program. So before we sold out the free upgradation offer, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me, call me, text me anytime. I have shared my contact information in a chat window. So, and we'll discuss and take an action. Thank you so much. Have fun. Enjoy your week. Bye.